AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
Good morning or good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be watching this. So we're live, and if my audio is working, let me know. We go live. We've got most of the screen here is the gun questions that have come into the website over the years, and then this portion of the screen is everybody watching the show live. So feel free to participate in the answers or the questions. Don't hold myself out there as some kind of expert. I'm just old, and I just happened to have built this website a long time ago with a function on it that allows people to ask questions. So we go live on Saturdays this year and go live and talk about answer questions that we can and have conversations that arise from those questions. We go live for about an hour. You can ask questions. We'll answer the newest ones that come in first, and then go back and dig into some old ones. So if you've got an idea for an old one, or if you want to pick an old one, maybe numbers, somewhere a number between 400 and 600 will get us started. So put that in here, 400 and 600 today. All right, so let's see. The newest ones, having trouble with the VSKS trigger assembly. Still don't know what that means. So, okay. Next up, I'm 19. I have a pistol permit, and in the state of Alabama. Okay, I have a pistol permit in the state of Alabama. I just got a pistol as a gift, and my friend gave me the firearm bill of sale, and I marked that I received this as a gift. Am I good to do that? It's all legal, right? I can have the gun in my holster with my permit and keep the firearm bill of sale in my wallet for proof? That's an interesting question. So if anybody's from Alabama, they can lean in on this one. A pistol with a 19-year-old is something that you're not able to buy from an FFL, but you're able to possess it. Said a friend gave it to you, so it would depend if the friend is in your state or not, for sure. You can't have a friend out of state give you a handgun because of the 1968 Gun Control Act. So nobody in my lifetime has been able to gift guns across state lines. When it becomes a friend versus family, there's some issue there. Family can do things that friends can't. And I don't know the laws in Alabama, so it's a good question. We'll leave that one open for others who might have more accuracy for that answer. But in general, we're looking at 19 being an issue only to purchase from a FFL, so that shouldn't be a problem. Possessing in the state typically isn't a problem. It's been a long time since I've been under 19 or under 21, I guess. I don't remember if I ever cared. When I was under 220, you knew it was a misdemeanor and you were going to deal with that, or you didn't have any other legal recourse. So that's a good one. We'll ask that one when we get somebody from Alabama, or somebody that knows more about that. All right, next up is I'm new to owning a firearm. When I was taking the bullet from the chamber out, I noticed it had firing pin marks on the back of the bullet, but I never once pulled the trigger. Is this something I should be worried about? That's super interesting. I wish I had some pictures here. So yeah, that's something that can happen, and it happens when the bolt goes forward on the chamber, or on the bullet, you could say, even though the bullet is perfectly sized to the chamber. So when it closes on the chamber, it's closing on the bullet, same thing. And when that firing pin, which is in the center of the bolt carrier, okay, so your bullet goes into the chamber, and then your action closes. What that means is the bolt carrier goes forward, and the bolt carrier is going to go forward and close and lock into the chamber. The bolt carrier carries the bolt. right? Bolt carrier bolt. So the bolt has a hole in it, and the hole is typically on a center fire rifle, right in the center. And that hole is where the firing pin lives. So that firing pin hole is either going to be a tunnel or a tube or some kind of a tapered cutout, something. And the firing pin's going to wiggle around inside of there. Now, the firing pin is ordered what to do by the trigger, but it's put into position by the bolt carrier. So sometimes when that bolt carrier flies forward, the firing pin, if it's not like secured to the bolt carrier, sometimes they're just in there, it can go forward further than the bolt carrier by momentum or whatever and tap the trigger, or excuse me, tap the primer. So that is a thing that can happen. It doesn't happen with anywhere near the force or the pressure, the force, I guess, that it would need to push the primer in, and the force of pushing the primer in is what ignites the pressure sensitive chemicals in there. So that is a thing that can happen, and it can freak people out big time. Once you've had more experience with the firearm, you'll learn the difference between that indication and an actual shot primer. There is situations, or there can be a situation where you pull the trigger, the hammer goes forward, it crushes the primer, but for whatever reason, nothing goes off, nothing happens. In that case, you have a hang fire for a while, and then you have a failure to fire. Hang fire for a while, because if it takes a minute for that primer to ignite and then to ignite the powder, that can happen. And it's not often anymore, but moisture or chemical reaction in there that delays the process, contaminants, physical damage, things might happen to create that situation. So those situations, you can have even a third option where you have a completely dented primer and no ignition. But in this case, it sounds like you have the firing pin marks that are made by the bolt and the carrier going forward, and probably no big deal. On that being said, I'm not an expert on every gun. So if you've got that happening on a gun, it's worth continuing to ask people, gunsmiths specifically, because if it's happening, if that symptom is happening on a gun where it shouldn't happen, that's a big deal. If that symptom is happening on a gun where it's known to happen, then that's known to happen. And you haven't mentioned the gun, so it's hard to know. All right, I noticed a couple of questions coming in. So let's address those. Those are technically the same as questions coming in at the bottom of the list here. If anybody wants to, it's just askgunquestions.com. You can ask questions over there anytime you want, or send people over there. So John was the first one here, right on time. It says, what pocket firearm has the shortest overall length? All right, well, that's a good question. It would probably be the North American Arms 22 short revolver, because it's the smallest production gun. The next possible shortest would be the folding, what's that thing called? Some kind of folding gun that's a 22 that's made in North Carolina that I can't remember the name of. Somebody's going to remember. Life Card. That thing folded is pretty short. And then, I mean, if you count pinfire guns, there's smaller pinfires, but those are not real guns. I mean, they're technically guns, but they're not fancy or real. They're not useful. The smallest useful gun is going to be a 22 short. Now, if you're talking more real calibers and stuff, probably talk to one of the gun review channels that plays with a ton of toys, because I don't know technically the shortest one. The shortest pocket firearm that I would consider carrying is probably the Ruger LCR for a real gun, 357. But I don't play around with every single one. So that doesn't answer your questions, but it's an answer to your question. So the next one is Fear No Evil. Just asked a minute ago, hello, do you feel 40 cal is old news? Lots of people talk crap about the 40. They'd rather have a 9 or 45. I don't have an issue with 40. Your thoughts? All right, well, I'm old, so I grew up in 45, 38, 357, and 44 Magnum, whereas all there was, or at least all anybody cared about. So 9mm came along in the 90s, I guess, 80s maybe. And whenever it came around, everybody hated it with good reason because 9mm is stupid and it's tiny and it's stupid. So 9mm is good if you're a Nazi and you hate the world and you're trying to kill everybody because 9mm is stupid and it was invented by Nazis. But a lot of people like it for whatever stupid reasons, and most of those have to do with stupid plastic guns that were made in like the 90s. So unfortunately, they were created in 9mm over in Europe, where metric is the law of the land. And they're stupid, and they're plastic, and they're tiny, and they're garbage. And they would come over here originally. You know, we know that the first one was the Glock, of course, which is perfect and it's fine. But then all these other ones like copied the Glock and they suck at it. So most of those other guns that are in 9 are garbage wannabes of that first Glock. And then now it's just this big weird mess of everybody trying to be more like everybody else, except I want my grip angle to be different. I want my trigger to be different. So 40 came along when all those Wonder 9s got into a big pile and just became ineffective and everybody was wasting their time on them. So then it became 9 and 45. And what was it, the Miami situation? There was a situation in Miami where there was actually a really good interview with Masada Ayub 2 weeks ago that was published, I think, in 2010 and then republished just the other day on the Pro Arms podcast. So since to answer that question, I get an excuse to go look at the Pro Arms podcast. So there's all kinds of podcasters that don't know what the hell they're talking about. And then there's the Pro Arms podcast, which is Masada Ayub. And that's the one I'd recommend listening to because instead of being a bunch of junk, it's good. So this is the post with Masada Ayub interviewing one of the guys from that shootout in Florida. So what it was, you can see the scene here. A couple of dudes from the Army were ex-Army people were robbing banks or doing something illegal a lot in Florida. And they were driving around doing it and no rhyme or reason, but a little bit of a no rhyme or reason, but with some parameters. And the FBI had a bunch of dudes tasked with trying to stop them, but they knew it was a tough job. So basically, they just all went out. They knew they were going to probably do something on a Friday afternoon or something like that. So all these FBI people just went out, 2 people in a car on a Friday afternoon and kind of just distributed themselves all around where they think they might have been causing trouble. And sure enough, they caused trouble. They started to leave Miami. And this is in a suburb southwest of Miami. And just off the highway behind some stores and like where some stores turn into a neighborhood, these 2 criminals were driving around, and one of the FBI agents in one of the vehicles decided, let's do something before or urged the other FBI people in the area, let's try to get them before they get back on the highway. And I think 2 FBI vehicles were in pursuit by the time the bad guys figured out what was going on. So one of the FBI vehicles attempted to run them off the road. I think they did successfully. And then immediately a gunfight started. Those FBI people didn't expect that. And the bad guys ran around with a rifle and some other gun. I forget. I don't remember all the details. Basically, though, then a third FBI car showed up and it was a mess. A lot of people died. A lot of training errors were illustrated. And like human tendency, let's blame our stuff instead of our training. Let's blame our stuff instead of our abilities. Let's blame our stuff instead of ourselves, right? I know that's easy 2020 hindsight, but to talk about it this Saturday afternoon, that's how I'm going to summarize it. Might not be the perfect way to summarize it. So in the result of that situation, I think both of the bad guys died. A couple of the FBI agents may have died, and then a couple were injured. But really, the thing that lived through that as the biggest take home for everybody was the 48 millimeter or the 40 Smith & Wesson. So basically, the FBI felt they were outgunned with their 38s compared to a rifle. Instead of getting a rifle, which I guess is good, they decided that a larger caliber that still has capacity is necessary. They don't really talk about it in this video, with Masada Ayub. They're talking more about the circumstances, but that's the impetus, if I remember correctly. And that's when the FBI went to 10 millimeter, right? So then they went to 10 millimeter and figured out that's too much. That's more than 45, so nobody could handle it. And that's when they went to 40. So 40 was created as like, oh, we need to do more than 45. Oh, we can't do that much more than 45, so let's make a 40. So 40 technically is supposed to be the power of a 45 with the narrowness of a 9 millimeter, so that you can cram a couple of extra rounds into a magazine and or cram the 40 into a smaller frame, so you don't have to have such a large pistol like a 45 in order to hold it. In reality, that's too much for most people. Most people can barely shoot a 9 millimeter, and then they blame everything, including the grip angle and the training and the lack of training, and they blame people on the internet, and they blame the wind, and then they blame the bullets, and then they blame something else instead of just learning how to shoot good. So most people that shoot 9 millimeter can't shoot any other caliber, and 40 was supposed to be this kind of step in between, and I really like it. I personally think it's a great round. Whenever a bunch of my friends went to 40, I was still on 9 because I already owned 9. I hated it, but I owned it. And then everybody went to 40, and I was okay with that because then I bought a bunch of their 9 off of them. Then they all went back to 9 because then somebody, police, border patrol, somebody started making 9 in a more useful round. What is it, 147 grain, something or another? And once you could get a 9 millimeter that was better, everybody went back to 9 because now you can shoot like a little baby and you can still have some amount of power. Then everybody sold their 40. That was the middle of the 2000s. So that's when I went to 40 because everybody was selling their 40 ammo and I could buy all their ammo. And I bought new guns, but I bought all their ammo. So yeah, I went to 40 because it was cheap and everybody was deciding that they weren't comfortable with the 40 or whatever. So 40 is snappy. How do I feel about the 40? Is it old news? No, 40 is snappy. So 40 is one of the higher pressure rounds. So you're either going to have high pressure rounds or you're going to have not high pressure rounds. So that's one of the ways that I think about ammo. And when you've got a high pressure round like a 40, a 10 millimeter is a high pressure round, a 357 SIG is a high pressure round, a 9, a 45, a 38, those are not high pressure rounds. So when it's not high pressure, the recoil is going to push you. It's going to, kick you or push you or something, but it's going to push back on the gun. And a lot of people are comfortable with that because their wrists are built in such a way that they can only have strength in one direction. So pushing is easy. It's not doing a push-up. That would be too much work for a 9 millimeter shooter, but it's like pushing the refrigerator door closed, or it's like pushing the bathroom door open, right? Like they can push the 9 millimeter, no problem. When you get to a 40, 357 SIG, 10 millimeter, it's snappy. So it's a high pressure round and that torques the gun. It twists in your hand. You got to hold on to that gun like a fast motorcycle or a fast car. It's going to pop a wheelie and jerk off the line. 45 shooters can handle that because they're used to the push of real caliber, but 9 millimeter shooters, that's like, that's horrible for them. They can't handle it. Their wrists are like glass rods, so they can be pushed in one direction and not break all the time, but if you twist them or torque them, they snap just like glass rods. So the 40 is a capable caliber. The 9 millimeters not. The 45 won wars, and what happens is there's so many 9 millimeter people that have ruined themselves shooting 9 millimeter all the time that they feel feeble, they feel inadequate, and in order to make themselves feel better, they say 40 is bad. So the people that talk crap about 40 are weakling 9 millimeter shooters that don't know how to shoot guns. They'd rather shoot the 9. Yes, they don't shoot 45. 45 people never talk crap about 40. Because you don't need to talk crap about something that's lesser than you. So 45 people just live their lives happily. 40 people live their lives happily and understand that they're better than 9 millimeter people. And 9 millimeter people are desperately trying to live a life out of fear and envy and jealousy. and anger. So I don't understand what it's like being a 9mm shooter, but I can only assume every negative thing that happens about any caliber comes from 9mm shooters. Hope that helps. Stick to 155 with 40 and 10. I don't know. It sounds good to me. I have questions about nutrition and how stability varies. Wait, I don't know what that means. Nutation and how stability varies with changing velocity. I don't know. So are you talking about how the stability of a, what's that called? A rotating projectile varies with, I don't know. I know Dead Horse was talking about it yesterday, how projectiles that are spinning through the air, flying, can become unsound. What's it called? Unstable, and they'll flip all around. Spoons and things will do that too when you throw them. So yeah, there's some tendency of a spinning body to stop every once in a while or create enough torque or something, and then kind of flip midair and rotate backwards or something, and then flip around again. They probably flip every so often. But that's beyond me. I don't know. I just shoot guns. If you have questions about nutrition, we can answer those in another channel. I should have said center fire 9mm or above. Okay. The NA 22 LR was smuggled into prison. Yep, happens quite a bit, I'm sure. You could probably put a 22 short, like under a piece of belly fat or roll of fat too, because they're pretty low. And there's as many accidents as there are gun deaths. So it's pretty similar. People don't like to compare them, but as far as machines go, they're pretty similar. Let's see. Both bad guys had M2 with their former airborne military police. I don't know if they were both airborne, and military police are not necessarily airborne. They did not both have M2 carbines. That's for damn sure. One of them had a Mini 14, and the other one did not have an M2. I've never heard of anyone having an M2 carbine, so I don't know what you're talking about. An M2 is a full auto M1, so very few of those even exist. They definitely didn't have them in the Miami shootout. They didn't even have M1s, so that's not correct. I don't need to be nice to 9mm people. Nobody's in here. I can run this chat how I feel like it, and I'm just telling the truth. Yeah, that's what I think he was talking about yesterday. I like 40, but the back of the mind, I'm thinking it can't be a 10. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, sometimes you want to drink coffee. You just don't want to drink the whole coffee. You know, you want to drink a glass of water. You just don't want to drink the whole glass of water. It's still a glass of water. A 40 is still a 10. It's just not all the way. It's just not all of it 10. That's all. All right. Well, nobody has said anything about what questions to ask or answer or whatever. So we've got 600 something questions in here. I don't try to answer these things myself. I'd rather have somebody else in here who might know what they're talking about for some of these that are specific. So feel free to ask questions. We'll dig into some of these. Now, if they're obvious, I'll answer them. But I'm going to leave these. Actually, I think I can probably leave this one as marked because I did answer the one about the firing pin, I think, adequately. But we'll dig back in here and grab, let's see if I can find one that I actually can answer instead of just finding one that's pointless. Let's see. So can you shoot 32 long rounds in the 327 Charter Arms? That's interesting. I know that there's some calibers that you can do that with, but I'll leave that to somebody who knows those off the top of their head. Okay, this one sounds interesting. Me and my wife bought handguns for us and my daughter, who was 17 at the time. Now she is 20 and it's her gun. But the guns were bought and registered under my wife's name. How do we give the gun in her name? So how do they give the gun to the daughter? All right, so first off, you didn't tell us what state. And since state laws matter, you have to tell us what state if you want better answers, just FYI. So me and my wife bought handguns for us and my daughter. So I'm guessing that means 3, so that's fine. So for some reason, the wife bought them all, which is good because women should buy all the guns for the dudes, just the way that's the way nature intended it, for us to shoot them and girls to buy them. But whatever, it's nice to see this family is doing it right. So that was 3 years ago. Now she's 20, and now she wants the gun. So it says they're registered under the wife's name. I don't know if this is a 1980s stupid girl movie or if this is real life, but there's no such thing as registering a gun under my wife's name. So that's what movies say because they don't know what's going on. But also, and or as importantly, they do know what's going on, and they're trying to marginalize gun owners with all violent crime. In which case, they try to make it look as though if you haven't done all these fictitious hurdles, that you're not an actual gun owner, you're a criminal. So besides Hollywood's marginalization of the gun ownership, there's no such thing as registration. There are a few states, only a couple of states, that require you to either have a permit to purchase, which is bullshit, or a permit to own, and that's like Illinois, I think, and maybe one other state. I forget actually what the hell we've been wondering for. Let's not worry. Let's just go straight to Every Second Matter or to Minuteman University, and then we'll take a look at to own. So it would be purchase, buying guns. Oh, I haven't put them in here yet. So where am I going to look? We're going to go to I'm not going to put them in here right now. That wastes too much time. So we're going to go look at the thing I made the other day with the, or did I make it into a file? I must have made it into a file, but I'm already opening up the software. So when we're talking about handgun, specifically handgun laws, there's only a couple of states that have heinous infringements, such as permits required to purchase or own. And that's what we're looking at in this list is, and that's technically, there's registration also. Why isn't it zooming? So we have permits required to own in Illinois, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, and I can't tell if that's it. No, it's just New York being orange. So in New York, there's a partial. I think there's a permit required to own a handgun, but only in Illinois, Massachusetts, Puerto Rico, and Washington, D.C. And D.C. isn't a state, right? Puerto Rico is kind of a state. So in real life, we got Illinois and Massachusetts are the only place that requires a permit to own. Right now, that's different than a permit to purchase. So that's a permit in order to own a gun. If you don't have this permit, then you don't own a gun in those 2 states. 2 states out of 50. Then there's a permit required to purchase. These states require you to ask permission in order to buy a gun. Once you've got the gun, it's yours, I guess. But you don't have to have a permit to own it. You just have to get that permit required to purchase. So we got a little more states that do that. Stupid Hawaii, stupid Iowa, stupid Illinois, stupid Massachusetts. What is this? Stupid Maryland, stupid New Jersey, and stupid Puerto Rico. All require you a stupid purchase to buy your damn gun. Then you got states that are partial, which are the orange states. I shouldn't use orange because it's horrible. But California, Washington, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, I don't remember all these states, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and what state is this? North Carolina. So a bunch of stupid states. You have to ask permission in order to purchase, but then once you purchase, you don't technically have a permit to own. So is it possible that this person lives in one of these stupid states and is saying they're registered, quote unquote, to my wife's name because they needed a permit to purchase? I don't think so. So more than likely, they're in a state that requires a permit to own, which is Massachusetts or Illinois, or they have firearms registration. That's a little bit different. You don't need a permit to purchase it necessarily, depending on the state, and you don't need a permit to own it necessarily, depending on the state. However, you need to register your guns once you do own them. So that's like having not a permit to own, but having told the state that you own them, and I'm assuming then having to also tell the state when you sell them or something. So then you got stupid California, stupid Hawaii, stupid Connecticut, and Puerto Rico, which is also stupid for doing that. And then you got a couple of states that are partial: Nebraska, New York, Pennsylvania. Come on, and I don't know what this is. Is this New Jersey? My maps are shitty when they're in this preview mode. So anyway, that's a quick look at why that's a tough question to answer in the way that they asked it. So me and my wife bought handguns for us and my daughter, who was 17. Now she's 20, good, and it's her gun. Should have been her gun when she was 17. But the guns were bought and registered under my wife's name. That's the weird part. So more than likely, what that really means, I'm just being picky because I got nothing else to do, but more than likely what that really means is just somebody doesn't know what's going on, and they bought the guns, filled out a 4473, and as far as their minds are concerned, that's registration. Is that a hidden danger of the 4473, that every dumbass who buys a gun and fills it out thinks that their guns is registered? That's called marginalization. That's called institutional infringement. That's where you create a perception in society that things are a certain way when in fact they're not. And then when people meet reality, their minds are warped to try to, create that bullshit fantasy that movies have created. All right, so that's the point of this show, is to not just answer the questions, but also elaborate on them. So, yeah, I don't understand how to answer this one, but a regular person would probably go, oh, no big deal, just give your daughter the gun, because that's the real answer to this. There is no registration. This guy's confused. He thinks there's a registration, more than likely, unless he's in one of those couple of 2 states, in which case, he is right. But how do we give the gun in her name? Well, more than likely, give it to her and go, this is your gun. Now let's go over some safety things, right? And be a good parent. But more than likely, you don't have to do anything. You just give your daughter the gun. And then if you're in those states where they have universal background checks, you're probably okay to give your daughter a gun, but I don't want to give legal advice, but more than likely you're okay. But if the antis had their way, you'd have to go through an FFL to give your own daughter her own gun, because of the way stupid idiots think gun owners are. Be mad about that. And the reason I don't just blow off the answer and say, just give it to her, is because that doesn't take time to illustrate the bullshittery of why this person's even asking this. They're asking every one of these questions because the antis are winning, and they moved it to where people think guns are so dangerous that each and every fucking gun needs to be registered through the government, as though the government is some sort of perfect keeper of knowledge, where, since the government knows who owns which gun, we're all safer. All of that perception is bullshit. All of that needs to be challenged. And anybody who would just answer this question without taking that time is not interested in actually moving the playing field, right? They're just interested in keeping the status quo. I'm going to go ahead and make that one green since I answered that one perfectly. All right, so now we'll see if anybody's coming up with an actual question. Let's see. Cars make people fat. Why aren't we trying to ban cars? Corn syrup makes them fatter than cars. You have to drive the car to get the corn syrup, but the corn syrup makes you fat. Okay, 238. Good. Let's see. I meant M1 carbine, and the bad guys had M1 carbine. Oh, so the cops had shotguns and revolvers for the most part. I think one of them had a Smith & Wesson something or another, but for the most part, they all didn't have anything. And then the main thing is they didn't have them in their hands. And since a couple of them kind of crashed, they're, not high-speed crashes, but they wrecked their cars and weren't wearing seatbelts, so everything flew all over the place, and some of them were dazed and whatnot when it all came done. Then they were getting shot at immediately. No, the result is, from what I understand, and I just listened to the one of the people who was there's description of the whole thing, so it's kind of fresh in my head. They didn't they didn't have their shotguns and stuff. Like all that stuff was there in the trunk or whatever, but it didn't do them any good. They got in a big wreck and then ran out of their cars shooting at each other. So it was what you had in your holster. Like the one guy who they were interviewing, he had taken his gun out and put it on his lap in prep, thinking he was about to get out and jump out. And because they crashed, his gun went flying. So he didn't even have his gun. Or at least one of the guys didn't even have his gun because the way he staged it. Okay, so Smeggy suggested number 238. I know that 9mm and 38 will load and fire in the same bullet in their casings. How about 10mm? All right, well, I don't know what they're going with there. So 9mm and 38 are technically the same diameter. So the bullet is the same around. The barrels are the same diameter, pretty much. They might be off a little bit, but they're basically the same. When I was a little kid, everybody called them the same. Nowadays, people have fancier micrometers and everybody has to fight online, but back in the day, they were the same bullet. Will load and fire the same bullet in their own casings. I believe what he's trying to say is, or she's trying to say, is that the 9mm projectile could be taken out and put into a 38 case with the proper amount of powder, and it would work, and vice versa. You could take a 38 apart and put the projectile into the case of the 9mm with the appropriate amount of powder, and it would probably work. Yeah, I think that's the case, but I'm not a reloader to that level of caring, so there's probably reasons why you shouldn't just do that, but technically in the overall picture, yeah, they're pretty close to the same. 10mm is a whole millimeter different. Now, they're pretty close to the same, meaning they're probably like 0.3805 or 0.3802 or something like that, so they're 0.003 different, where that 10mm is 0.1 different. And in numbers, the closer you are to that dot, on the negative side or on the right side, is bigger. So, yeah, 9mm and 10mm have nothing to do with each other. It's not 10mm and 9mm long. It is 9mm around and 10mm around. So a 10mm would not fit in a 9mm. It would be a millimeter too tiny, and a 9mm would knock all around in a 10mm, like a BB in a shotgun barrel, right? It would just clunk all around in there. And since it couldn't fill the pipe or wouldn't fill around, the pressure would never build up. So a 9mm wouldn't even shoot out of a 10mm. If it went off, if there was some way to hold it there and make it go off, it would just sort of open and not do anything. It would just be weird. It would just be a mess. But it would just all fall out, I believe. I don't think there's any, well, it might be long enough to wedge in there, but it would be a mess. Anyway, know that 9mm and 38 will load and fire the same. Technically, 10mm out of the question. So I don't know if Smeggy intended that one to be that, but that's answered. Let's see. So then we go back over here. Oh, I was going to jump on, but I don't know what I'm talking about. And you didn't get a link, so you're not going to be able to. I only give a link to one person. So that rules me out. Teddy Two Guns I watched. Somebody, Paul Howell is real. This other guy I'd never heard of before. So you guys can watch his videos. There's a film on that shooting with David Soul in it. Oh, like a movie? Yeah, I think they referenced the movie and they said the movie was pretty bad. The movie was a dramatization. But there are recreations of different types that get really nerdy. It kind of depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about training, then you look at the Miami shootout differently than if you're thinking about ballistics, and that's differently than if you think about police techniques, in the development or whatever. Let's see. If it's in Michigan, you just have to fill out a registration thing for handguns. Infringement. I did a video on a very popular subject. Anybody knows the subject of the 86 shootout? It was the year before, or the year I was born, and banned fully auto because they knew I was coming. Well, you should have said, hey, don't worry about it. Then they wouldn't have done it. If they're talking about 4473s, then you don't need anything. It's just hers now. Correct. I agree. Jumping around. Not sure about California, New York, or other states, but with registration, but probably have to do whatever. Yep. So we looked at the maps there. Think you should need to ask to purchase, but it should. I think you should need to ask to purchase, but it should be Me, they ask, and I don't think about it. Michigan is like that. You have to register handguns, but they got rid of purchase permits. That's good. You still have to register handguns? That's lame. One guy had a semi-auto. Yeah, I think one of the FBI guys had a semi-auto Smith & Wesson, 9mm probably. Right on. Thanks. They have the store. It turns out the store was disconnected or something happened. Like they changed the names of stuff. And when they changed the name, it like disconnected my store. Anyway, I've been trying to connect my store. So it's connected to the other store, if that makes sense. I have 2 stores for shirts. And yeah, appreciate the feedback because I'm not even sure. YouTube's weird and everything takes like hours to update. So I'll flip things around and then I forget that I flipped it around because it doesn't happen immediately and I don't want to wait around to watch it change. So appreciate the feedback. We do have a bunch of shirts on both Spreadshirt and Teespring. And since I didn't really pay attention and YouTube was feeding the wrong shirts up there, I went through the other day and updated them. So yeah, there should be a bunch more shirts there. I think I set everything to be 1984 just because that's cooler than having actual prices. So a couple of those shirts we make like $2 on, and a couple of shirts we make like $9 on. So enjoy them or not. I really don't care. The one store, Teespring, has some audio or some ebooks, however, electronic books that are not published that lets you buy the book as an electronic copy. So if you're interested in that, FYI. All right, maybe he means can 10mm projectile be used in a 40 case? No, and that's the thing, right? Oh, well, he could have said that, but he didn't say 40 at all, but that would be a little bit different. I am off to the Alaska Fair. It's raining, but Alaska, it always rains. The Constitution pertains to bearing arms, not firearms. No. So the Alaska Fair, what is that supposed to mean? There's one fair for the whole state of Alaska? That's unfair to the people that are far away because Alaska's big. I'll start a campaign to have more than one Alaska Fair. Right on. Thanks. All right. So anybody else have any other ones? We got a couple more minutes here. We try to do this for an hour each Saturday. So I'll just pick another one. Boom. Can you buy a firearm with a temporary ID? Right. So they asked that question twice. I'll just go ahead and make this one red because it's fake. It's a second question. This one is the answer to it is, well, don't tell us what state you're in. Don't tell us what firearm it is. Don't tell us how old you are. And I don't know what temporary ID means. So if they mean like I just moved to a new state and I haven't been issued my actual driver's license yet, but I have like this temporary driver's license, that's one thing. If they mean by that, I'm not old enough to get a driver's license, so I have my state ID, that's another thing. If they mean I'm so drunk all the time that I can't own a driver's license, so I have a state ID, even though I'm old enough, I can't drive a vehicle. I don't know if that's what they mean by temporary ID. So there's a lot of variables there. Can you buy a firearm with a temporary ID? Well, first off, if you're buying a firearm from your uncle or your niece or something, then they know who you are and they don't need anything. Can you buy a firearm from a gun shop without an ID? No. Can you buy a firearm with a temporary ID from a gun shop? No. You're going to need a list or one of the items on their approved list, which ain't going to be temporary or vague or like intermediate IDs, obviously. They're going to be, well, maybe not obviously, but for federal government stuff where they want an ID, they want an ID. Otherwise, they'd say they don't want an ID. So a temporary ID is almost effectively worthless when you're talking about anything official. You can't go buy a car with a temporary ID. You can't get a passport with a temporary ID. You probably can't vote with a temporary ID. Whatever else you need an ID for, you probably can't do with a temporary one. I don't know why they give you a temporary one, probably for dumb school stuff or like getting a ticket or something. It's just there to show you that one's on the way. Probably going to have to wait till the one on the way gets there. Mainly because they want the numbers. It's not like the gun shops or anybody else is going to care other than they have to do their jobs correctly, and that is not one of the things they can use. All right, so I don't know if that answered it right, but it's an answer. Let's see. In Alaska, you can buy a long gun with a fishing license. Good. I can buy a long gun with no license here. This puny Alaska Fair is not as big as I think I can kick it over. Oh, snap. Oh, 563. Thanks. Oh, it's terrible. I'm from Texas that has the world's largest state fair. Interesting. Well, that also seems unfair to me then, because Texas is also a big state, and that would be a lot of a lot of traveling for somebody in down in the taint to have to go up to the Panhandle, for example. So even though did I say to 600? I thought I said 500, but we'll still take Smeggy's 563. What kind of foreign rifle has V5351 on barrel? Let me look that up on the internet for you. So here's what I'm going to put your own words into the internet. Go to a new browser window and click paste and hit enter. So how about we put the V and the 53 together? Does that make a difference? Well, first we'll look. We got a shotgun with that on the barrel. We got a stupid, TriStar gun with that on the barrel. Got another shotgun barrel with that on the barrel. So we're gonna search for it with the words together. And now we see this one. It's probably this one, because they're saying, did they say something about a war gun? Foreign rifle. Let's see if this will open up into an actual auction. Nope. It's too old. So that, what is that? Some kind of P14 rifle, looks stupid, is got allegedly that number on the barrel. Looks like this cat is walking on a barrel. Is that safe? I feel like that's safe. There's a Browning. Gun values board. Well, that's two instances of a Browning showing up. And since we don't know what country that person's in, if they're in a foreign country, if they're in like France, then an American barrel is foreign to them, right? So there's no way to answer these people. So I'm just going to leave that one as an unknown. Maybe in the future we'll have somebody on here who will join me as a guest, and they will know what that is off the top of their head, and somebody will ask that question, and we'll have solved it. All right, so nobody else has answered any other requesting an answer, so or a question, I guess. What's all this about? Virtual assistant. So this person is asking us a question so that they can answer it for their website. Nice. That's called outsourcing. Where can I buy choke tubes for a Rossi circuit judge? Probably from Rossi. And if not from Rossi, there's websites, there's stores out there that do nothing but sell chokes. So here's the thing. People that hunt, they care about their chokes. People that that shoot recreationally, they care about their chokes. People that shoot for competition in some kind of sport, they super care about their chokes. People who just think it's cool to work on a lathe, I guess, probably make chokes for the hell of it. And then I'll bet you $5 that somebody made a choke and it looked kind of cool, and then somebody else was like, well, I can do that, but I'm going to make it look even cooler. So I will bet you that there's chokes that just are made because they look cooler than some other guy's choke that works. So where can I buy choke tubes? Rossi, the company that made your gun, is the first place to look for the basic set of replaceable chokes. More than likely, chokes are how much of a funnel you put on the end of your shotgun barrel so that it squishes the group or the pattern of the bullets or the shot that comes out. So Rossi probably, I have no idea, but I'm guessing that Rossi has like probably 3 or 4 options for you, since if there are choke tubes on a gun, it would be unusual for the manufacturer not to offer at least a couple of options. But maybe they just put chokes on there, removable chokes, figuring that some aftermarket company will. But here's what a choke is. It's a piece of metal that's the right diameter, and that's about easy to do. And then they thread it. So, wow, there's a lot going on with a choke. They thread a piece of tube, and I guess they kind of constrict it a little bit, or they open it up, whatever they do with a drill. So they basically just need a drill and a tap and die, and anybody can make a choke. So, yeah, I don't know exactly the place to send you, but I can tell you there's a billion places that make chokes. And I know that because I was going to say this dude, but it wasn't this dude. It was another dude bought my one shotgun. And it was a shotgun made in Russia, over under, imported by Winchester, Remington, or somebody, and then sold here in the U.S. And it's a nice shotgun. But then Russia was like, I'm not going to make any aftermarket parts for it. We don't care. So then some other company, about 3 or 4 companies, made them. And I just went online and bought a bunch. So I definitely know I have experience buying aftermarket chokes. And unless things have changed in the last 15 years or whatever it's been, then I'm sure there's even more stores doing it. Nobody has asked for another specific question, so I'll just grab one. Can you give me an invite to the Gun Channel's Discord? No, there is no Gun Channel's Discord. There might have been for a minute, but I hate Discord. I think Discord is the biggest waste of time on the internet there can be. Let me take a minute to explain. Discord is shitty. Discord is nothing more than a social media platform that is built inside of storage sheds. So if you ever been to a public storage place where they take a whole bunch of garages and attach them together and then rent those to people, that's what I'm talking about. Have you ever been to like one of those U-Haul storage centers where they have like a big giant room or a big giant building and they fill it up with little rooms with locks on them in hallways, and you rent one of those little rooms to store your crap in? That's what Discord is. So Discord is a giant empty place on the internet that has no signs on it except for one that says Discord, and there's a big door in the front. And all these people walk in the front door and they go to exactly the storage shed that they're supposed to go to. They have their key, they walk in, and they do whatever weird, gross thing they're going to do in that room. They do it completely alone. They do it to the internet, and it's pointless and stupid. The point of getting together with other people is to accumulate knowledge. It's to bring together and grow, right? It's to add and contribute. And hiding all that contribution, hiding all that amount of stuff that you've created it's the anti to what our point is to get together and do stuff online. When we do this online, as an example of the alternative, it's happening in front of people. So right off the bat, we're not hiding from a bunch of people and other people can experience it. Number 2, it goes out to a platform that's publicly available. Wow. And then 3, it's archived. It's there until the platform falls apart, which will be a while. All that information is here. So this time and effort that we've put together or spent, it has value. When you put any amount of time into Discord, you're destroying that time. You're taking your own time and effectively destroying it. You're making your time hidden from the rest of everything. If that's your goal, awesome. Discord is awesome for like losers and introverts and people that don't care about anything. But for anybody that does care about anything and people that aren't assholes, Discord is shitty. So I'll never like Discord. Discord has great ideas. It's a beautiful thing, except that because it's hidden, it's stupid and worthless. It's not cancer, but it's like cancer in the fact that all it does is get people all worked up in little echo chambers, wasting their time and accomplishing nothing. Let's say that you accomplished an amazing feat in Discord. You'd now have to pick it up and redo it on the rest of the real internet. So it's pointless. Doing stuff on Discord is like going down into a tunnel and doing something interesting in your basement that's too big to pull out of your basement. And then you can tell your one friend about it who you're going to drag into your basement, and you two can be super happy knowing that you two are the only 2 people in the world that know about whatever awesome thing you made was. Discord is useless. So there's no gun channels anymore, and there's no Discord. Discord is the opposite of gun channels. Gun channels brought people together so that we could grow, so that we could each become better than we were. Discord allows everything horrible to happen quicker and more ugly, and it's horrible. Yeah, well, I think it's shitty, and I think it's a waste of time. So never change my mind on Discord being the dumbest waste of time ever. I don't really care. You all are going to, spend your own times. It's just that at the end of your time on World, or end of your time in whatever you consider your time frame, You're going to go, oh, wow, I did a lot of shit hidden from the rest of the world, wasted all that time. You can't bring back time. You can do stuff. You can do all kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, when you do it in Discord, it's pointless. It's useless. But hey, if you want to encourage people to be mean to each other and ugly and worthless, then yeah, Discord's awesome. You can go be horrible and shitty in Discord to each other. All right, so we don't have any other questions to suggest, so we'll go to 445. I am a business owner and I was wondering if I could have a long gun from my business for protection purposes. All right, well, guess what questions we didn't have answered there. First off, business owner, okay. Wondering if I could have a long gun for my business. Well, where? And the first question is where? Is it legal in the state that you live in? What kind of legalities? Can you own the gun? Are you allowed to stand your ground? And do you have castle doctrine? So let's talk about those. We already talked about the states where you have to have a permit to purchase or a permit to own. So according, assuming you're not in one of those stupid states and you don't have to deal with that stupid infringement, now you can go buy a long gun all you want. Can you take it to work? Probably. If you could buy it in a state that's normal, then you could probably take it to work because it's really protecting you and you're standing in your office or your business or whatever it is. But can you buy a gun and leave it in your business? That's a totally different story because now who's in your business, right? When is it open? Who has access to it? Blah, blah, blah. When it gets to castle doctrine and stand your ground is the opposite of duty to retreat. So duty to retreat means the state says bad guys always win. Bad guys make the rules. If a bad guy comes up to you, you need to leave. If a bad guy decides now is the time for you to pay up or die, you pay up or you run away. That's your only two options. So you could die, I guess. When you have stand your ground, it's the opposite of duty to retreat. So when you have a duty to retreat, it's as if the state says you cannot defend yourself. When you have stand your ground laws, which most states do, if I opened up that map again, we'd see that most states have stand your ground. I guess I could just open that up again instead of just alluding to it. When you have stand your ground, you are an individual, and the bad guy who decides it's time to screw with your life is the one that's got to deal with the repercussions of that. That's the wrong software, so we'll close that. Although I probably could have opened that software now that I think about it. Or I could have opened the file in that software, but whatever. So stand your ground is with you, right? You either are standing your ground or you have a duty to retreat. If you live in a state, most people do, where there's stand your ground is the law of the land, then castle doctrine comes into effect. Castle doctrine is the idea of where you can stand your ground. Most states agree that you can stand your ground in your home just fine, but whether or not you can stand your ground in your business might be an issue, but not probably. All right, so stand your ground, now that we're looking at it, is only an issue in a couple of stupid states that suck. New Mexico, Nebraska, Wisconsin, New York, stupid Maine, and what is this? That's just the rest of New York, I guess. So in those stupid states, they require you to run away from a bad guy. It is not your right to defend yourself or to live in your own home. You have to run away if you can. If there's a door open and a bad guy is going to be mean to you, you're not allowed to deal with it. You have to run through the door. Yeah, that's the law in those states. I don't know what NA means. Oh, I guess NA means they haven't ruled on it. So they would like it to be communist, but they haven't figured out a way to do it yet. So now stand your ground is the opposite of duty to retreat, right? So now where do you stand your ground is kind of castle doctrine. Most places say that you have a right to exist where you are. Some places say you have that right to exist in your home, but when you're out of your home, you're no longer, in your home anymore, so you don't just carry your rights around with you. In states like Nebraska, Wisconsin, Maine, and Washington, D.C., you still have a duty to retreat. You're not allowed to stand your ground even in your home. So that's where it becomes an issue. You got to ask the question, or you have to we would have to ask this person the question is, what state are you in? Because unfortunately, those couple of states, it would be a different answer. But as you saw, the green states, all those states that are good and regular and true and virtuous, the green states, the good ones, in those states, there's castle doctrine or stand your ground, meaning a bad guy comes up to you, it's doom on the bad guy, assuming you can do something about it, which is good because you don't have to do something about it. I mean, it's nice if you can do something about it, but when there is a doom on the bad guy environment, that bad guy doesn't know if little old lady or single mom or incapacitated person or distracted person or person with a bunch of kids or nuns with a bunch of orphans. They don't know if those people are willing and able to lethally defend themselves from being abused. And in those circumstances, you create an environment where bad guys don't have any incentive to cause trouble. So I really think that in those states where everyone's allowed to protect themselves, everyone is safer. And you don't have to carry a gun to be safer. You just have to not freak out when your neighbors might be carrying a gun. All right, which Clover's just jumping in.
Sorry,
I don't know if you're just jumping. Huh?
Yeah, I just literally flew in. So yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I was just gonna say, since it's just about an hour, I don't really care. I'll go another hour if you want, or if you were just jumping in to say hey at the end. But
no, I didn't. I got the time mixed up. I guess I thought you'd just sent out the email. So yeah.
Oh, no worries. So if you've got an hour, we can go another hour. I don't really care. I don't think anybody's going to get upset if we go 2 hours. Well, it's really answering questions.
Yeah, it's up to you. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't mind. So we'll just keep going for another hour. If you don't like it, leave. And if you're down with it, then stick around and ask more questions. We're going through questions 300 to 600 today. So if you want to pick a question, it's 300 to 600. The one that we're on right now is, I'm a business owner. I'm wondering if I could have a long gun in my business for protection. So I was basically done, but if you want to wail on it, go for it.
Rooftop Koreans.
Oh man, I didn't even think about going that way. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was saying more like it kind of depends on the state and blah 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 and castle doctrine, but Clover just brought up an awesome point that I'm not gonna just blow off because it's one of my favorite aspects of current, like our lifetimes. We don't have a lot of stuff in our lifetimes to point to, but when they're going to say something like, why would you need an AR-15, right? Like, why would you need something that's a weapon of war? Well, in those riots, you had a situation that was sparked by, what do they call it, institutional racism, and then you had deliberate provocation by the law enforcement, by the police in the city, were doing stuff long term which caused stress and tension, and then a specific incident set it off. The actions of the law enforcement, and you can go back and debate me on all this if you want, but this is the description of the 1994 riots that most people will describe. Was it 94 or 92? I mixed it up. But whatever, the police retreat from the situation, created the situation literally, and then that created the situation. What started the situation, what instigated and fueled the fire was the helicopters and the media who watched everything happen, documented it in real time, and then basically encouraged the chaos. They said, this is what's happening and you should be upset. This is what's happening and you should be upset right now. This is what happened. The police left. Now we all have to worry about what could happen next. Oh, our worst fears have happened. Look what's happening next. People would run out of their house, look up into the air to make sure that they were actually living that life where the video feed they were just watching on their TV was happening from the helicopter above their house. You could literally see people run out of their house, look up to verify that this is actually happening in real time. As soon as that happened, people figured out, the bad guys figured out that the police had actually left the area. And that's when all hell broke loose. They amplified the stress and the tension that was created by the situation at the times. And that all came to a head. The conclusion of that was billions of dollars in damage. What a week of chaos, of arson, of murder, and I always call it felonious mobs, because it's not individuals that decide I'm going to do something heinous. They get mad, they go outside, a group of people becomes mob mentality, and stuff happens. It's not an excuse. It's an awareness of how people work as mammals in this world. And when that mob, arsonist mob, set out on just being upset, got to the neighborhood north of them, which, like you just said, everybody mocks it as roof Koreans. You're just saying it, but the store owners that got on their roof with long guns that had extended magazines, that silhouette of that image, not the race of those people, not the type of gun, not the caliber, the idea that a human being, an adult with a rifle that's capable of reaching distance, was known to those mammals in the mob,
Well,
and it registered their selfish self-interest. They stopped, they went home. There was barely any fire exchange of rifle fire. The presence of those rifles stopped what the law enforcement couldn't do, what the National Guard couldn't do. It stopped it because it wasn't the National Guard coming in with tanks, which would be an aggressive move. Instead, it was a defensive posture, and it worked. So yeah, I like to always double reflect on that one. But go ahead.
And it's worth mentioning too that rooftop Koreans is nomenclature, right? I mean, I'm sure they weren't all Koreans, and I'm sure that it was in a predominantly Asian or Oriental or whatever district of the community, right? Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you're totally right. Doesn't mean everybody there was Korean or anything. It's just
and a bunch of them were in parking lots. But it was the idea that humans protecting their property with rifles worked against mobs, and that's just a real situation. It's not like people can go, well, there hasn't been riots, and people can't say like, oh, well, that wasn't effective. So I just great point.
And you're right, because the Asian, whether they're Korean or not, I mean, I'm sure somebody's done their homework and know, but the Asian folks on the rooftops, right, is that snapshot in history, and that's why you get that terminology used. It paints a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And rooftop Koreans just paints that iconic image.
Oh yeah, because it brings us to that specific end of that riot. And again, we're talking about a riot if you didn't live through it, and this was before internet. There was no internet yet. So this was when cable TV was ruling. Like satellite TV had died, VHS had won over beta, and
you're right. You're right that it absolutely was the height of the aerial footage, car chase, whatever, bank robbery, aerial footage thing. They were getting really big into that. The news companies were at that time.
Well, that's what I was saying. We were like in the progress of evolving in it. You can't think about it today because we live in a different world. But back then, there was no 24-hour news cycle, or it was just starting. And we lived in a world where, like you just said, like people were figuring out that, hey, if we put a television camera in the helicopter and follow news around instead of traffic, we can get more views. And because there was no rules, they decided to lean in on that. And because they're unscrupulous and they have no morals and they have no foresight or any, they know that that they're not going to be responsible for any consequences to their actions. The media just went nuts and they fueled that fire. And people don't like to talk. Well, people don't talk about it, but the results of that was you don't see that stuff anymore. You see it very rarely anymore because everyone realizes that that's what fueled most of that riot. Was the fact that people could literally, the same way that if they show fans in a stadium at a football game or something, they stand up and cheer. Well, guess what? When you're a mob and you put a helicopter up there and you get them on video before there was an internet, and it was like, hey, we're like being on America's Home Videos, except we get to go get free prizes. I mean, like it was literally a phenomenon. And you're right, the rooftop Koreans are like what is used to summarize that or whatever. But the other part, I guess I was going to say, is it happened in California at a time, in the 90s, California was the one setting the curve for all the federal garbage that we had. California did it first, and then the federal government did it because it worked in California. So for that to be happening in 92 in California, come on, that's super important to history. Yeah. And it's overlooked.
I think it's important, too, to realize what that happened just after, which I think was the culmination of events that led to that type of news coverage tactic or whatever you want to call it, which is the Gulf War. I think the Gulf War is when we really seen the birth of that. Would you disagree?
That's interesting. When the Gulf War came out, I was specifically not interested in watching exploitation of my brother. So I didn't watch mainstream. I only watched what would be the equivalent.
Well, it's not like I was glued to it and watched it, but it was the same.
No, I remember what you're saying. I just wasn't paying attention. But no, you're just hitting me with something that I purposely didn't pay attention to. I wouldn't disagree. I just didn't pay attention.
We've always had embedded reporters and TV crews and other things in war, right? I mean, pretty much always, ever. I mean, even
but not in so much real
centuries
time.
ago.
Well,
Right,
yeah, always.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Civil War and before, like always,
Oh
yes,
yeah,
always.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. There
just a
was always.
nature of it.
Yeah, I mean that's to record everything. I mean it's all a part of war, right? Is you got to have somebody to keep track of things and whatever. And reporters were a good way to do that. But I'm saying it manifests itself or it whatever I think in the Gulf War, and then that ultimately led to the coverage I think we're talking about with those riots. But we kind of got off the gun thing, so we can get back on that if you want.
Yeah, I hear you, but that is, I mean, it's technically not like a trigger and a hammer type of gun thing, but I refuse to suggest that laws aren't gun things because laws are gun things super hard. Anyway, so, I mean, because if you've got bad laws, you don't have gun things. All right, so I raged on Discord a bit, and then they were talking about duty to retreat. Where are you going to run? I don't think that the duty to retreat is supposed to like run to the police station or run to a firefighter. It's just like avoid a deadly encounter. They don't care if you run into a burning building. They don't care about it. They just think that by not having a deadly encounter, they've cured the world. So it's just the same as like, oh, if you take the gun away from the suicidal person, we've accomplished something. Like that's the kind of people who would say run away as if that's an answer to a situation. You didn't solve the bad guy wanting to be bad. Like he wants to murder or she wants to murder, so you run away. Even though you're capable of stopping that person, you run away. You're in fact forced to run away. So what does that murderous person do? Quit murdering because you ran away? Or do they murder the next person that's not capable of running away? It's ridiculous.
And
it's
all
basically
of that,
like don't worry about anybody else but yourself law.
yeah, and all of that is predicated on the human condition that is fight or flight. And so the opponents of, let's say, stand your ground or whatever, would say that by engaging, you are potentially escalating situations that would not otherwise escalate. And if we're being intellectually honest, and that's why we have to be vigilant on so many fronts, there is some truth to that. We have to practice. That's where KD comes into play, and all of these other folks that talk de-escalation tactics, right? Is we have to be aware that even though we choose to fight and we choose to stand our ground, it is a defensive posture, and all other exorces have been basically, you know what I'm saying, have been exhausted to that brings you to that point. So
yeah, and on paper, in some sort of theory, that's awesome. You have this tunnel of blah 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 checklist, but in real life, you don't get to check. Sometimes you're all the way to zero.
In real time,
sometimes it's 10 to 0. You don't get 10 steps in between. Yeah.
Yep. But that's why it's important to talk about these things. That's why it's important to play out your scenarios. That's why it's important to train, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good point. Well, I don't want to get too on tangents, but yeah. So here's the deal. If you're watching this and you'd like us to go on tangent, use your fingers or wiggle your finger on the screen or whatever, and then we can communicate. But otherwise, I'm going to try to stop some of these because we started off with can I bring a rifle to work, and now we're talking theory, but it's not hard to get me over to theory. All right, so then I still think there's a wrinkle if it's for your own use versus letting employees use your gun when you're not there. Yes, and I didn't really get to that, but I think I mentioned like if it's your gun and it's coming with you and it's protecting you and it's in your bag and it goes home with you, that's different than I bought this rifle for the store. And then you get into that issue of when employees can and can't. And if it's just like this is the rifle for the store, and then some bad guy sees that and knows where it is, and now it's like I'm arming the bad guy next time he comes in. So you know what I mean? Like you got to be vigilant and not dumb about it either.
Yeah. But and I'm going to say some states because not all, right? The defensive measure of I've used a firearm, it really has no bearing on whether or not that firearm belongs to you, so long as it's not an illegal firearm, so long as you're legal to possess a firearm, right? As long as all those things hold true, it really doesn't matter one way or another. But again, we get into state and potentially even city regulations when you get into business, right? Municipal regulations. So, yeah.
Yeah, state less and less often because that requires the lack of a state override, and most states have a state override. A couple of states where they have cities that are older than the state those cities said, no way are we letting this young new state tell us what to do. And in those places, you've got cities that have laws that override state. But yeah, that's definitely an issue. Man, there's so many ways that we could chat about that one. I guess I was going to say it probably, I'm trying to think, because when you said it doesn't matter who owns the gun if you use it, if you have to use it. I wanted to challenge that because it seems like the kind of thing where you'd have to say, except for, but I really don't think there is, because I think you're right. I think that, except for maybe if you're a felon, but even then, there's like rules that say.
That makes you, but I caveated that and I said that, as long as you are able to possess a firearm, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but even a felon, I think, if you are a felon and you save a baby from a murderer with a gun, they're not sending you to jail. You know what I mean? Like, there's times when you're able to break the law in order to sit.
Right. But I was talking strictly in the sense of breaking the law. There's absolutely 100% a difference between you broke the law and now they're going to be lenient on you, right? Because the law was broken for some type of a quote unquote noble purpose or whatever, right?
Yeah, there's a need for that, yeah.
But you also have that happens. We all know it all too often where somebody does something that is truly heroic. And then we've got, activist judges or activist DAs or whatever that go after them tooth and nail regardless. Right. We've seen that happen and play out over and over.
I guess so. I don't want to make it seem like that happens all the time, though, because I can't remember an actual instance of that, but I'm sure it can happen for sure. And it could happen. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it ain't going to happen to you.
Right.
All right, so moving on. I'm in Texas. Okay, that was Smeggy's good point. Corey says, I'm in Texas. I've been constitutional carrying. Wait, I'm in Texas, been constitutional carrying. I've had a couple of crazy looks, and this old timer saw me and smiled and gave me a thumbs up. Well, welcome to constitutional carry. That'll happen. I imagine you're going to have to experience it too. It's different in Texas, I'm sure, because Arizona is a gun-friendly state, but we got a lot of visitors and old people, and we could be gun-friendly as heck. Doesn't mean everybody is used to guns here because nobody's native Arizonan. So when it happened in Arizona on July 30th of 2010, I had already been carrying, so I had not, it wasn't like I first put on my gun when constitutional carry went to everybody. And that's the thing. Everybody, when you first start carrying a gun, you go through the I'm carrying a gun phase, and I don't know how it lasts a different amount of time for everybody, but it's usually some amount of time before you forget that you're carrying a gun all the time, or it's like car keys, or I guess it's like a phone. Some of us remember what it's like to not have a phone. So the first time you're carrying around $700 in your pocket all the time, you're pretty tender with that $700 pocket phone or whatever. So nowadays I throw my $700 phone around like I don't give a shit about it. And it's like that with guns too. So if you're new to carrying, that's going to be a thing. But now you've got, all those people in Texas. The thing is, they're Texas. So I guess it's possible for somebody to be new to Texas, but they moved to Texas. It's not like they moved to Connecticut and they're seeing a gun. You know what I mean? So it's going to be different in Texas for sure. But I can't imagine your learning curve is going to take very long. Like it's going to probably be a matter of weeks before people start giving you that eyebrow. Mm-hmm. Or before people quit giving, right? The people are going to quit giving you eyeball.
Yeah, not even paying you any attention. Yeah.
And then people are just going to be like, oh, why did I move to Texas? If they have a problem with it. Or they'll just be in Austin where, like Austin is just the same.
Right, yeah.
They're all Koreans. I don't know about that, but whatever. In Texas too, I'm going outside now in my shoulder holstered pistol in my backyard. Still getting used to this being a way of carrying. Shoulder holstered pistol. What are you, pro or con?
Depends on the situation, but I'm okay with it. I would much prefer a vertical draw. But if you were going to do that, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm not a super fan of it, but I have a couple of shoulder holsters. I like horizontal shoulder holsters. I don't know.
Well, I like horizontal. I like horizontal from the standpoint of it being concealed. But if you're going to, open carry, and I prefer shoulder holstering being concealed anyway, quite honestly. But
you're talking like an open shoulder holster, walking around with a shoulder holster.
Yeah, and there are people that do that. But in that instance, I would the horizontal, I mean, lends itself to flagging. And I mean, if you don't know, we had a situation here where the sheriff's department don't even allow shoulder holsters anymore, at least not open. And one of the reasons is they had a detective, and there was multiple complaints with him. He had a it was obviously vertical, I mean, a horizontal draw, and people were concerned over the whole flagging issue. And so, I mean, is that a concern outside of a negligent situation? I think we can all agree that it's not, but we also have to realize the people that are uneducated, and potentially I don't know what the word is, the unrest or the societal implications or issues that might revolve around that. That's why I say I would prefer if somebody was going to shoulder holster, regardless, honestly, whether it's vertical or horizontal, that you wear a windbreaker or you wear a cover garment of some fashion, just to make people feel a little better. There's nothing wrong. I mean, that gets a bad rap, right? That, oh, screw your feelings and all of this, and it's like, but feelings and anxiety and stress and fear and happiness and all of this stuff is real things. Emotion is something that people do feel, and it does affect their life and their health and their well-being. So to just dismiss it completely, I think is moronic, especially when you can just throw on a cover garment and you're good to go. But that's my 2 cents on the whole shoulder carry thing.
So let's say that you're sitting at your computer and you're frustrated because you're trying to figure out a way to talk to antis, people that hate guns and gun owners because we like guns so much, right? We're fascinated by these violence machines that are only designed to murder, right? And it's frustrating because we don't have that mindset. So we're doing everything we can, and we're listening to people from all over the spectrum. We're bring anybody who's interested in firearms in so that we can offer advice and counsel, and then let them explore, not give them any requirements other than safety, and let them explore and bring others in, right? And then, you're putting all this money to organizations that are doing even more of the same at the national and state level. And then you put on your shoulder holster and your FU, my political party's better than yours shirt. And then you walk outside with a rifle, and then you're like, oh, my idiot neighbor's an asshole. So I give him the bird the whole time I'm mowing my lawn with my shoulder holster on.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, well, you're kind of taking yourself out of the game. It's like you voted and then you ripped up your vote. It's like, oh, I went down, I put my vote on the paper, and right before I put it in the slot, I ripped it up. Effectively, right? And I'm using that as an example because, one, nobody does all that work except for like 5 people I know. As far as trying to get the word out about being positive gun stuff, nobody does that much. Plenty of people who wear their shoulder holsters and shit don't do squat. They might be one of the 7 million members of the NRA or one of the $5 million worth of members of SAF or GOA. And that's fine. I'm glad they're doing that. But are they effectively ripping up their membership by then going out and being yahoos to gun owners? They may not be wearing a shoulder holster and giving the bird to their neighbor the whole time they're mowing the yard. But if you're unaware and you're driving around with conflated messages or dual messages, I like guns and you're allowed to say anything you want. I'm not telling you to discourage you or nothing. I'm just saying be aware of what you're doing. If you're driving around a big ass pickup, you're being weird, and there's somebody that's tender. You watch somebody tender in their little electronic vehicle and they're trying to quietly get home, and you look at them and you're offended. Why the fuck aren't they allowed to be offended by your dumbass truck or your weird motorcycle, right? Or your dumbass hot rod, or what I'm saying? Like, they're allowed to be offended by you just like you're allowed to be offended by their moped or their Volkswagen or their goofy looking lowrider truck or their, I don't know what people can be offended by. Everybody's offended by everything, right? If you want.
Yeah. Right.
Or you could appreciate it. Or you could be like, damn, that's cool. I wonder what kind of gun you'd carry.
Right.
That's cool. What kind of gun would you carry? Right. So anyway, allow people to be offended by you. You can be offended by whatever you want, but then be aware of that and go around, do whatever you want, but then be aware of it. And if you can maybe say, hey, I'm that guy wearing the Trump this or your political party that, and my 44 Magnum outweighs your electric battery or whatever the hell you think your position is, be like, I'm that guy and here's my position. I'm trying to clarify it. You know what I mean? Just be aware. I'm not trying to change your shit, but
right.
Just be aware that when you go out there,
I've talked to people literally, I'm going to spring this up again. I've talked to people, and when it got all down to it, you're having a conversation with them, they say stuff like, gun shops are mean to me, right? They said it dumber than that, but
Right.
you know, gun shops are mean to me. Oh, really? Well, how is a gun shop mean to you? I went into a gun shop. They had an American flag with a blue line on it. So I left. How are we supposed to know that? Like, I don't like that personally, but I know people that like it. And if they dig it, you know, I'm cool with do it whatever you want, right? I don't like it, but if you like it, like it. But did I have any idea that someone would walk in and be so offended that they'd leave the gun shop and go around saying the gun shop was mean to them? Like,
Right.
whoa. And what I mean by that is they're saying that gun shops are blah, 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 hate, blah, 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 festive, you know, blah, blah, blah. They all these dumb words that they'll use to describe, like, you know, their brain way of saying that gun shops are mean to them. And it's like, holy crap, if you don't even know that you're doing that to people, then are you really even paying attention? So that's all I guess I'm getting at. That, yeah, wearing that shoulder holster. All that said, I like a vertical shoulder holster. I don't care. A horizontal shoulder holster.
Yeah.
The up and down shoulder holster has one use, and that's for a giant revolver that you can't put horizontal. Everything else, every regular size gun and every big gun needs to be horizontal. The only exception to that is the cool World War II pilot holsters where it's like on your chest, because those work really good in a canoe or an airplane or something when it's sort of like angled on your gut, right? Like right on your left boob or whatever if you're right-handed.
Oh yeah, I love my chest rigs. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I like those a lot because it's not because of anything else but then the draw. I don't care about anything else, but that is a smooth draw. You reach and you pull out and you're done. So compared to pulling up and everything, I'll draw normally because yes, you have to conceal normally and it's just better and smarter and everything else. So I'll pull up to draw out of a regular holster and I know how to do that fine. But if I'm out hunting or something, if I'm just out in a canoe living my life, I want one of them. Well, I have a guide holster basically for my big Glocks. Problem is I don't have a holster for a light, so I can't use it ever because I'm not going to carry a gun around without a light. But man, it's a big, dumb leather thing that looks more like some kind of thing I would have if I had a bladder issue. But it's cool. And it's not that comfortable because it's kind of hot, but you'd probably be canoeing or airplane in Alaska or somewhere where it's cooler. So I doubt heat's an issue. But yeah, I think they're cool. And I'd like to get to the point where we're beyond all that. In the same way that I get offended when people walk around with sandals without socks on. I don't want to look at people's feet. I don't care about your toes or any of that shit. And I got to look at it, right? Well, then I'm wearing a shoulder holster. Or I'm not. But I don't care if somebody's wearing a shoulder holster as much as I don't care about, or I'm dealing with sandals. Or you name the weird piece of clothing somebody wears that's just like, America, we got to deal with this, right? But you know what? Now I'm wearing my weird shirt or whatever. I'm wearing my camouflage pants. Nobody can stop me from it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on shoulder holsters. I really like horizontal shoulder holsters. And I want to live in a world where we can wear horizontal shoulder holsters outside of our shirts and not get, what's the word?
I don't know. Not be a stigma or offend somebody or whatever.
Perfect. Yeah, stigmatized. No, that's a perfect word, stigmatized. All right, so I think we're way behind now. So DJs out there, yep, I want wall-to-wall coverage of smart bombs. I don't know what that's about. So to have a safe egress is my take. I'm not sure that was back when we were talking about duty to retreat. So an employer who wants to do this for his or her store should want to have his or her lawyer. I don't even know. Probably talk to some instructors, CCW instructors, maybe even like security people, because security people might have a whole different angle. Remember, just like if you're talking to a SEAL, they point their guns up because they're always in boats. And if you talk to somebody who jumps out of an airplane or helicopter, they're always pointing their guns down because they don't want to shoot airplane or helicopter engines, right? None of them's right or wrong. It's just the situation they train in mostly dictates their thing. So cops, with a whole different rules of engagements are going to be different than a security guard people, whole different rules of engagement than a CCW instructor. So for somebody who's talking about employee stuff, there's also lawyers. Damn, I didn't even think about lawyers that deal with Second Amendment and gun-related stuff. I'd say those are 3 resources for an employer who's interested in. I would probably say my thing, if I was an employer of a company that had people showing up as employees, I'd say Company policy is you're encouraged to bring your own short and long guns to work. And
There
then
you go.
it's done. It's just over. Everybody has their own gun.
Okay.
Let's see, I worked with a sheet metal shop in the heart of Detroit, and they encouraged all employees to carry. I'll just leave that up there. That's a awesome thing, just to know that that's happening. Horizontal flags everyone behind you. Yeah, well, have you ever heard about anybody getting shot that way? You know, aside from, I don't know, maybe somebody taking unholstering in a locker room or something, which is when everything happens. So yeah, I hear you, but it's never actually happened. And until guns start going off by armpit stink, then I'm not too worried about it. Plus, think about the entire 1930s through the 50s or 60s. Like every detective always carried a horizontal J-frame. So, and J-frames are definitely going to go off. I think a shoulder, because you think they carried with one empty? There's no way. In a J-frame, they had every single cylinder filled, right?
All right. Yeah, they would. Yeah.
They only had 5, and there were 38. There's no way they carried an empty cylinder. I mean, there might have been a cop that did that.
Right.
So I think shoulder is good if you're in a good or in a cold place and you're wearing a bulky coat. Working on my neighbor's house. I've been carrying for years. Open carrying in public is new. It takes a minute, and it'll definitely help being in Texas. Like I say, I'm cheating because I'm in Arizona. I can open carry, and nobody even looks. I can open carry a giant Glock. I also look enough like a cop probably that nobody even cares. So, you know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things. Now, if you're the not guy that looks like a cop type of thing, then you're probably going to get different. You know, because if it's out of place, I mean, if I was carrying, I don't know, a tennis racket, it would look weird. You know, I don't look like a tennis player.
Right. Appearance does make a big difference when you talk about open carry. It really does.
But I'm guessing the state also, like people aren't going to care after about 5 minutes in Texas.
Yeah.
They are going to probably see more people open carrying, but it'll be more like they're only going to roll their eyes when it's the weird holster being fallen out or something obscure.
Yeah. So when you're open carrying, right, the first thing is appearance. I mean, right? I mean, what is the saying? That, you know, the first impression or whatever. So we're visual beings. So the first is going to be your appearance, right? So, you know, perception to that person. What do you look like? Are you scruffy looking, wearing ratty clothes, blah, 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 while you're carrying? Or do you look like a normally dressed person? And then the second, and I think the more important, is once they get over the visual, it's your demeanor and your actions. So are you doing stuff that looks shifty and shady and whatever? As long as you're going about the normal course of your day in your business and you look like a fairly normal individual, yeah, people aren't going to mess with you. And not around here, and I would wager not most places.
No, that's perfect summary. It's exactly what a good CCW instructor would tell you.
Yeah.
So Delmer Agato is saying I'm wearing sweatpants, both horizontal and vertical shouldered. The urban carry looks off for me. I don't know, is that the urban carry? Is that one thing that pulls out of your pants?
Yeah.
And I conceal when I'm going to the front yard or further out into public. Yeah. Yeah, that thing, I guess for applications, it's probably fine, but I don't like it in general either. Oh, yeah, that thing. Belly band.
It's absolutely...
Belly bands are different. You're talking about the big wide piece of elastic with some Velcro, or maybe like nowadays they probably have some kind of stretchy pants or tube top looking thing. And girls got a zillion different versions of tube tops with holsters in them. I'm the opposite. I always thought those were interesting, but I'm a fat guy. And then I started hanging out with CCW instructors and going to CCW classes back in the day. Like I would go to CCW classes monthly or whenever I could. I would constantly, every time I met a new instructor, ask them if I could come to their class. And then I would bug them until they quit letting me come to their class. I really enjoyed going to classes. So I really enjoy the belly band stuff because of the options you got. If you wear like a button shirt, where you can unbutton one of the buttons so you can reach your hand in there and no one's really going to see it. And since the gun is kind of off to the side and the belly band is either your skin color or your t-shirt color or, you know, just like, you know, black or something, people aren't going to see it, then you can reach in there, grab it. I think belly bands are a really cool option, especially with the way, well, out here at least, a lot of people wear light clothing that isn't like a belt and sturdy holster. Foundation or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the I'm in Texas, went to the chiropractor in a room with 4 tables, 4 other patients, informed doc I was carrying, laid gun on table beside me, just like setting a wallet on the table.
Uh,
You would think they'd have more privacy. You got to go in there and get completely naked with 4 other people that are completely naked. You got to lay on a table with no blankets, and then you got to put your gun next to you. That seems I'm not into that. Are there gun pride parades like Every Second Matters I saw from UP Marshall a long time ago? Well, there's not been a parade that I know of. There's certainly been rallies, and oh no, last year the Virginia Citizens Defense League, the granddaddy of all the Citizens Defense Leagues, the state level, does a yearly what do they call it? I forget what they call it. Their yearly assembly at the state capitol. And because of blah, 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 they were trying to stop them from doing it last year. So they organized a caravan. So that was technically kind of like a parade. I mean, it wasn't slow with bands and banners and technically a parade, but it was a caravan that organized effectively, got people from out of state, all around the state in buses and organized through cars. They would meet at rally points, or what they call it, like meetups ahead of time, and choreograph their entry so everything was nice. They didn't disrupt traffic or anything too bad, and then left no trash or nothing. I mean, like, just an epic job of it. And that they had buses painted Hunter's orange with Guns Saves Lives on the side. It was amazing. So yeah, definitely there has been at least something as close as we've got to a gun pride parade, but that's an awesome challenge. I mean, I'm all about that First Amendment right to assemble. I've seen it happen so many times where somebody's like, do, and then they get together with other people and their batteries go from like, oh, I'm going to throw away these dry cell bullshit batteries and go with these alkalines for 2A. And yeah, that's just amazing. I'm a big fan. Go ahead.
So I've seen some roaming activism. I don't want to call it necessarily protest or anything, right? Roaming rallies that could be, I guess, considered parades in a way.
Like if they wouldn't let them have like a place to stand and they just had to then show up and walk. That's true.
Yeah, they just kind of walk. They walk a certain path, but they don't really stop anywhere.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. Was that in like Pennsylvania or Ohio or somewhere up in the Northeast? I thought
there's been some here in Texas, and it's not because Texas don't allow it or it's unfriendly or anything, but you get into city statutes and having to have permits and some different things that has nothing to do with 2A, right? It's like it didn't matter what they were doing, whether it was 2A or abortion or killing puppies or whatever the cause is for. It's just people didn't want to pay for permits or go through the hassle, or maybe they didn't have time in the organizational aspect of it to get the right applications in, and so they opt to do a walkthrough or whatever.
And then I have seen an anti-gun parade or rally, I guess, where they walked around 18,000 strong here in Phoenix one time. That was pretty crappy. We went up there for it though. But no, Every Second Matters would not organize something like that. Just FYI, Every Second Matters is simply the awareness of the concept of doing something for the second on the second day of the month. But there is no board, there is no entity for Every Second Matters to promote or do it. So it's just a concept. But somebody could. I mean, again, I think that's a great challenge. Well, there is no Second Amendment organization at a national level that's devoted to events. I mean, I guess there could be if that Second Amendment rally turns into a thing, but it has not turned into a thing. So, and it claimed to not be a thing when it started. So it would be technically, I would think there should be a new one. But yeah, I think a new national level organization focused on either amplifying the existing rallies or creating rallies where they, could be useful or should be kind of thing. That'd be great. I know there's people that disagree with me vehemently or whatever. In fact, national level organizations heads have told me I'm wrong about that. Let's see. We celebrate every second of the month. Please feel free to join in. No signups, no fees, just Pro 2A. Thank you. Summed it up well. Kingpin. Let's see. Then we got. Are we done? No, it jumped on me. My toenails, Clover tack, chest rig, saw your video, now I'm gonna have to pick one up. You're talking about that recent one you did? That was technically what I'm talking about, I think, right? Like a side, like with basically a new model of, or a new version of what the World War II pilots would have worn for a pistol holster.
Yeah.
I have been mocked for wearing socks with sandals since I was a kid. I don't know the whole sandal culture. I leave that to Jesus. But if I don't know why you'd want to wear a thing that allows you to smash your toes. Like I can wear a boot, which basically makes me Superman. Like nothing, even like something smashing down intentionally on my foot can't hurt it. Or I could just barely strap plywood to my foot and then walk around naked. No way. Don't understand. In public, like I've seen people get on planes. Like good luck jumping out of a plane with those sandals there, guy.
Mm-hmm.
Or girl, whatever. I guess I can understand a baby girl wearing sandals because you're gonna pick them up and help them no matter what. But a regular size human, you got no business. That's when I think that's one of the real indicators that we got trouble, is when enough people are not aware of their footwear.
Well, like maybe on a very nice sandy beach, right? Be like the only place.
No, here's why. Because I figured out they make these new things, which are basically ninja boots with four-wheel drive sandals or treads on them. So imagine taking a boot, a real boot, more like what do they call, like a hiking boot, like a boot that's not made for walking around on spikes, but a boot that's made for like climbing up rocks. And you strap that to the same material that you make a mouse pad out of, and you barely make a little ninja boot out of that. And those cost $10. There's no way I'm wearing sandals to a beach when I could effectively, it would be like what surfers were going to wear if they were going to run off of their surfboards and go to war. It's like a mix between a combat boot and a surfer thing. So yeah, those things are amazing. Get them at Walmart. Go to the Walmart shoe section, wall store boots or shoe section. They're $10. You get them in a couple of different colors. And there's even a $5 version that's got more of like a mosquito net with a four-wheel drive bottom on it. So yeah, there's no way I'm wearing, and they don't come off. They're like wearing a ninja boot. They're literally the same as wearing the old ninja boots, except they're actual for real. And yeah, you can wear them in the water. They dry out. Like I wish I could go canoe. Like I've got canoes and boats and stuff that I just never use, but these are the perfect, I wear them all the time now. These are the perfect boot shoe things, ninja shoes for boating. So yeah, even on a beach, there's no need. Now that these exist, there's literally no need for a sandal ever. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic, I guess. Do we have a poll going? Well, I'm not going to fart around, but we'll keep it with guns. So this one's been definitely paying a lot of attention to the comments out there. So thanks for people that are showing up live. We're doing this a little bit alternative because of I started the show right on time, but I got to my computer like 4 minutes before the show started. I technically started a little bit late. So I sent you that email minutes before I started the thing. And then I went live for an hour. Then Clover figured it out and jumped over. So we're going to go for another 15 minutes here, but we'll jump back. And nobody has really asked for a specific question because we've just been playing with the comments. Again, thanks for showing up live. This is a little bit alternative. If you're watching this in the future, you're not just playing around with us live right now. Typically, we go live on Saturdays for 1 hour, and we just hit the questions that have come into AskGunQuestions.com. We start out at the beginning of the show with the most recent questions. So if you ask a question as you're watching this video, the next time we have a show on Saturday, we'll address it. So we'll do that and then dig into prior questions. We've got hundreds and hundreds of questions over the years. So just to kind of bring us back here and to play host here and give people kind of an orientation of where we're at, let's start with these last three. I'll give them to Clover, the most recent three, two, I guess. The one we had from last time, what's a VSKS trigger? And we still don't know what the hell that is. I'm just going to turn that orange, I guess, because it's one of these like not enough info questions. So the next one was, I'm 19 and I have a pistol permit in the state of Alabama. I just got a pistol as a gift, and my friend gave me the firearm bill of sale, and I marked that I received this as a gift. Am I good to do that? It's all legal, right? I can have the gun in my holster with my permit, and I keep the firearm bill of sale in my wallet for proof. I answered, but I figured I'd have somebody else on and have them answer it before I mark it green. So have at it.
Wow. Okay. So read it to me again because I can't read it.
Yeah, because this one is vague. So yeah, there's a lot to it. I'm 19 and I have a pistol permit in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
I just got I just got a pistol as a gift, and my friend gave me the firearm bill of sale, and I marked that I received this as a gift on there. Am I good to do that? Is that legal? I can have the gun in my holster with my permit, and I keep the firearm bill of sale with me in my wallet for proof. I think he's asking that.
Okay, so my answer goes back to, honestly, rooftop Koreans earlier, and the whole concept with that to an extent with shop owner. Doesn't matter as long as that you're not walking around with a stolen firearm. Doesn't matter. You don't have to. I don't know of any regulations in any state. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on YouTube, but I don't know any regulations that say, I mean, maybe in states that have registries, right, and rosters and stuff. But outside of that, I don't know of any, you're talking about Texas, you're talking about there, I don't know of anyone that you have to show that you own the firearm you're carrying. Now, obviously, if there's some type of an altercation with law enforcement and they decide to run the serial numbers and it comes back stolen, you're screwed, right?
Take 5 minutes with this one. I think my dog needs to pee again. She's giving me the cry and wiggle.
Okay.
She's already peed, but take a minute.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I don't know if this person is trying to conflate the license to carry with like a registration type thing, right? Because they did have to go out and essentially get registered to be able to carry, which sucks. Shall not be infringed, right? But yeah, there's no, and probably being 19 is probably an educational thing with this. So I would say that they probably perceive 4473s and that sort of thing as a registration. And so, because I get that a lot, that people will say, yeah, but if you didn't buy that from, whose name is that in? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Whose name is that? It's mine. It ain't in anybody's name. I own it. And they're like, well, yeah, but you had to go fill out the paperwork. And I'm like, at the FFL dealer? I'm like, that has nothing to do with who owns the gun. That has to do with the paperwork and the subsequent, if that's applicable to you, right? The subsequent instant background check for you to be able to purchase said gun. It has nothing to do with the ownership of, right? So this is one of those questions, I think anyway, it's the way I'm reading it, where one is getting conflated with the other because just of the convoluted nature that is laws, infringements, gun control, shenanigans, legislation, regulations in this country, and how it can really muddy and murky the water. So just keep in mind, as long as obviously you have to have that permit where you're at, it sounds like, and to be able to carry. But as long as you're carrying a legal firearm that's not stolen, now you talk about an NFA item or some crazy any other weapon or some weird something like that you're legally speaking not supposed to own. But even then, if you had some type of an NFA item, that would be legal to carry. Like I could carry an AOW or I could carry an SBR or whatever it might be. Now, again, if I have an altercation with law enforcement and I'm carrying, let's say, an SBR, then, I have an altercation. Am I going to have the stuff at my disposal? That would be a situation to where I would want that tax stamp, the paperwork, potentially a copy of that, a PDF on my phone, something to be able to show law enforcement and go, no, I mean, this is not just something I whipped up in the basement. I mean, I legally own this and it's cool. But I've taken my SBR and suppressors and many, many things to rallies and stuff like that. It's totally cool. I mean, if you legally own something, carry it. End of story. That's my opinion on that. And I think G's back. So,
well, I was hearing what you're saying there towards the end. What about this then? Because this, when you start talking NFA, we all lived through not everybody, but older people have lived through the pre-NFA era, and then now, which is the current NFA era. So, okay, there's probably more than one era, but just for this conversation, we got what's happening today, which is 3 3D printed guns. We got challenges. We got, post the Hearing Protection Act and the bump stocks. We got today, which is a different environment than it was. Let's go to 2000, where in 2000, the internet was just happening. People were barely figuring out that you could conceal carry, let alone get NFA items. As soon as the internet distributed information and the assault weapons ban ended in 2004, holy moly, everybody had concealed carry, almost everybody by then. Every state that you could conceal carry easily in had concealed carry, and we were fighting for the other states successfully together, and we got them all. Let's not forget that. But in the early 2000s there, NFA was like it's, we can get what now? Oh, wait, what? I can buy that? What? Right? So it was a lot. And then the times went up and everybody was focused on it. And then at the same time, we had, I can buy this machine that used to be like unobtainable, and I can buy one and put it in my garage. I can buy a new one. I can buy a used one. Like, I can take my skills from work and apply them here at home on projects I care about. Oh, wait a minute. I sold so many of my own projects on my own company, right? Like, that happened all over the place at the same time that AR-15s were being, you can't let us own this anymore. Well, now I got 10 of them. Now what do I do? Oh, I can make each one of them separate and I need 10 more, right? Like, come on.
Right.
So, when all that was happening, we had a lot of NFA talk, I guess, right? So I'm setting the stage for that kind of situation. Now it was like, so in other words, nobody ever thought of full auto, short barrel, long barrel, none of that stuff until everybody had it. And once we got it, it's like now, and I'm telling you, I'm going to a lot of classes during this time. So that's one of the reasons it was so fun, I guess, because you'd go to a class and it'd be like I had a question yesterday that I'll bring up in a second that I bet you never heard of before, or maybe. But anyway, the question would have been for Clover, this was all setting them up for, you mentioned as I walked back in here, carry around your NFA item because you can. Well, what about if you got to use your NFA item for some reason? Now it's going to jail, like it's going to evidence somewhere, and that's your NFA.
Potentially.
Always potentially, but I mean, big ass potentially, because first you have to have used it, and then it has to be a situation where they'd want it as evidence. But now your NFA item's gone, and that's expensive and frustrating and annoying. And you don't always get it back good and that kind of thing.
I've seen multiple situations in my area of Texas where people defended themselves with their firearms, literally filled out a form and went home and lost absolutely nothing. So that's why
I hear you.
I
don't want to say that. I know of 2 situations where it has happened the other way. I only know of situations like you described.
Yeah.
And I know of a couple of situations from going to all those classes. I know people that go around doing it, but I do know a couple of people that have had to deal with stuff. And then, like I said, I've definitely heard situations. So it's rare that they do, but that would be the concern. And definitely when we were having those conversations, we didn't know. It wasn't like we're sitting in 2021 with knowledge of the past. We were at the beginning of all of this going, what if?
Right.
And when something's new, it's real easy to go, what were you worried about? But when you have to struggle to get your rights back, it doesn't mean the other side is like, well, we lost, so you can have your rights back. It's more like, over my dead body, and I'm going to do everything I can to not. You know what I mean? So it's not like they just said, you can have this, so in your case, you can take it to the full extremes. Right. That's why it's so awesome today. The stuff that happened back then was like, well, we'll open the door, and we'll unlock the door, but we're not opening it for you. And then we had to all open the door and look around, and then we go, there's stuff in there, there's shelves. And then the next person would go in and go, there's stuff on the shelves. And the next person would go, the stuff on the shelves is for us. And then a bunch of people ran in there, and now these kids are like, well, of course you go in that room and grab shit off the shelves, you dumbasses. It's like, well, what the fuck? We didn't always know that. Right. So, yeah. So it was a different world back then.
Right.
So we had different conversations. And the reason things are common today is because the conversations were thrashed out in the past. And that all happened on the internet in free open forums, not Discord. I went off for like 20 minutes on how much I hate Discord and why. Man.
Yeah, I get
that all happened on open forums. In fact, if you want to go find you want to find Mall Cop? People think, Mall Cop, blah, blah, blah. You know where Mall Cop comes from? One post on one forum, 1 year, 1 day, boom, there's an actual beginning post. And the reason you can go find that is because of open internet that's out in the open for people to see. The reason that something like that can never be an origin on Discord is because Discord is fake, and anybody can say anything that happened in Discord, and it's fake. So anybody can say anything that happened in Discord. There's nothing that'll ever happen in Discord. It's all fake. It'll all be some screenshot of bullshit. So anyhow, I'm also deciding this time I'm going to go back and hit the questions that we've addressed and put them in the description of the video to make it easier for people to figure out what we talked about.
Cool.
Not timestamps because that's too much work.
Yeah.
So anyway, as far as the one that I left to go let the dog out, that one, you're good with that one. You've answered that one.
I think so.
Okay, and then where are we at? We're getting close to the end of the hour. Let's see if there's any other comments. Somebody said I'm not going to comment anymore because I was saying something about comments, but it's the opposite. I was just saying to keep us on time, I'm going to go back to over here, but also we were done reading the comments. But I agree with Smeggy. Comments are what makes actual, authentic, real conversations those things. It makes it authentic. It makes it real. Now, sure, there's going to be ATF plants, right? We're going to see those more and more, FBI plants, whatever, in here, narcs, trying to screw up the conversations. Hey, isn't it sad how the country's over? Or like, hey, let's go do some horrible thing. Or like, let's chop an end off of this thing, right? Aside from that, the real people that we all know, that makes this stuff real. And I've been online way too long, seeing the evolution of everything, kind of what we just alluded to here, because of those live things. So I did not mean to stifle the live comments at all. In fact, Travis came in and has 2 questions for Clover. So can you read? Oh, you can't read them. 1, are you seeing more people open carry with the new change in Texas carry law? And 2, are gun sales up with your state's change in carry?
I'm gonna caveat this, Travis. We can get rid of the echo. By saying that, first of all, I've had the Rona for the past week, so I haven't been out and about. But I mean, I've been driving by, I've been paying attention, and other things, talking with folks. So I'm going to say that the answer to both of those is no. And I'm honestly not terribly surprised because you're talking about, the question says, am I seeing any more open carry? And realize that you can open and or conceal with Texas Constitution carry the way it is. Permitless carry, whatever you want to call it. The name of it is arbitrary. And I think the vast majority of people choose to carry concealed for a litany of reasons, of course. So I'm not surprised by that at all, and I'm not shocked, and I don't think it really means anything. Second question, are gun sales up? No, because we're in Texas, and you had tons and tons and tons and tons of people that owned firearms already, big into firearms, just never wanted to bend to the will of the state to get a license. So it's not like it was a situation, this is my opinion, a situation to where it was opened up. This was a huge thing for non-gun owners. This was more of gun owners that felt that they weren't going to take the time despite, because of infringement and government blessing and blah, 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 blah. So that coupled with sales are starting to level off because of all the panic buying and everything else anyway at this point. So kind of a 1-2 thing, I guess, with that question. So that's my limited thoughts at this point. I mean, we're only a few days in, and again, I've been bound to the house for the most part.
Well, as I was reading that, I'm thinking you're only a couple of days in, but as far as gun sales going up, people have had 2 months to anticipate. So sales can definitely be affected, I'm sure. I don't know if you said that because I was over here finding all the questions and putting them in. I think I did. So one of the questions was, where can I buy choke tubes for a Rossi circuit judge?
Rossi.
Yeah, and then I also said there must be a bunch of aftermarket choke places, because back in the day when I bought chokes, I found a bunch of aftermarket choke places, either for competition or hunting or just being fancy. So I'm assuming for a circuit judge, they're going to make them because that's fairly common.
There's not a lot of companies that make them for that.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then.
Yeah, really.
In other words, because I was going to say some of the weirder chokes you're only going to get from aftermarket. So I'm sure if Rossi makes them, you probably get like 3 or 4 options. But if you wanted something beyond the normal, you probably have to get it aftermarket anyway. But I'm just assuming. So you're saying that that's too rare of one for them to bother with?
I'm just saying that I don't even know of any aftermarket for Rossi. Here's why.
In fact, it would be more of like, it's not so much what you can do, it's what they think people are going to buy. So if people who buy circuit judges don't want different chokes, then why would they make them?
Well, but here's the thing. You almost negate the point of a choke with a circuit judge. Okay, I've got a my dad bought my mom one thinking it would make a good hunting rifle. It's not the greatest at doing anything, any one task. It really isn't. And here's part of the shotgunning problem with that. And when you start talking about chokes, that's a rifled barrel. When you put spin on a shot column, you almost moot the whole point of a choke anyway, if you understand how chokes work. Are you following me?
No, if you're asking me, say that again.
I said when you run a shot column down a rifled barrel, you almost moot the point of what a choke does in the first place.
No, yeah, exactly. No, you're right. And that's you well, I guess you can do whatever you want, but it's dumb to even bother putting a choke on a rifled barrel.
Right.
For more reasons than one, because half the time you're shoving a slug down there and that'd be bad too. But yeah.
Right. So I don't know even if you found chokes and whatever, but they do come if you buy them new. He probably bought it used or something. You know, even if you put a choke on it, I don't know what kind of, I haven't seen any type of effective difference by putting a choke on it. It's because of the spin that the column gets from the rifle.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. So it has nothing to do with if people want it or if they can make it. It has more to do with the gun itself has a rifled barrel where almost every other shotgun doesn't by definition, right?
That shoots shot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, exactly. If you're going to only shoot slugs or you're planning on shooting slugs for this task, you buy a rifled barrel specifically for that task, and then you put your smooth barrel, and you don't put chokes on a rifled barrel, and then you put your smooth barrel with chokes. So I didn't even think about it from that angle, so I'm glad we brought that up. And then the other one was an interesting one. Oh, wait, I'm going to go back to Travis, had a second one. Was it constitutional carry that was enacted in Texas on September 1st, or just open carry of pistols?
It was a permitless carry. You can call it permitless. So, I mean, we can carry anything anyway, as long as it's in a holster. That's the only caveat. If it's open carry, it has to be in a holster. In other words, you can't sling it or some silly, like just in your waistband showing. Now, if it's concealed, the holster thing's out the window. You can put it in your pocket. You can whatever because it's concealed, right? So, there's a few caveats like that, but it is opened and or concealed. It encompasses everything. So yeah, technically I guess it's not constitutional carry. It would be permitless carry. And some people don't like permitless carry. There's other people that don't like calling it constitutional carry. To me, it's all semantics, nomenclature, whatever. I prefer to say constitutional carry. And some people would argue that, well, we don't need to do that because that implies the Constitution gives us the right to do it. And I'm like, I'm just the opposite. And we don't want people thinking that, right? And I'm like, why do we won't know, but that gives us a chance to explain that the Constitution protects my right to carry, and so I don't have a problem calling it constitutional carry, but permitless carry makes it sound like permits are the norm, right? Like permits are the norm. Now we got permitless carry, and it's like, well, permitless carry should be the norm.
Yeah, we're doing it without our permit. Like we're skirting the law. And plus permitless carry comes from the antis. They created it. Right. I never heard that specific one about constitutional, but I think it's beyond semantics because of that permitless thing. That if you give them words, then you're not paying attention to words. And why would we not want to pay attention to words? They're super important.
Right.
But I can understand if you want to call it something besides constitutional carry, then come up with a better name, because at this point that one's catching the breeze, and it's not because the NRA said it or GOA or anybody else. It's because it has just become like the cultural way of saying it. And it's not permitless. Permitless bothers me, but interesting the way you said it there, because the way you mentioned the open carry, whatever situations, because as we were watching it on your 10-hour chat that one time, no, wait, not the 10-hour one. It was one of the shorter ones, I guess only the 6 or 8 hour ones where they were doing the actual Senate debates, where basically, hey, we got this idea, and then all the other senators chime in on it. And at some point they're like, oh, that's a good idea. So, sometimes it's like, we want to go over here and make a right angle. And somebody's like, hey, what if we do a 45 because of this reason or that reason? And then they're like, yeah, that doesn't bother our main plan. Let's do a 45 there. Thanks for bringing that up. So they're honing it, right? They're smoothing it out. They're making sure that it fits everywhere. And that's why you get whatever compromises or adjustments or weird little intricacies. And it's like, because, when I'm looking at this stuff for the big 2A history projects, and I'm like, okay, let's just think about who's got what do you call who's got CCW and who's got constitutional carry? Well, it's not quite that easy because, or if you just say who's got open carry, it's not that easy because, like you say, you've got these weird issues in little states, little fine details that are different. And it's not just to piss everybody off. It's just because those particular situations, those conversations evolve that way, and that's what they agreed on.
Well, and people overthink things. There's a lot of that going on with constitutional carry. So one of the biggest questions I've had throughout this whole process, and even in over the last few days, right? By the way, I've got a YouTube Shorts for anybody that cares, and who cares about the shorts. But in the description is a great resource from Texas Law Shield that explains a lot. So check that out if you have questions about the new Texas stuff. But one of the things is signage, right? And people are massively overthinking the signage. What sign does this even be? Okay, first of all, so you have basically two classes. You have licensed and you have unlicensed at this point, right? Unlicensed would be the permitless carry, constitutional carry, whatever you want to call it. Licensed would be the Texas license to carry. You have these two, okay? Simplifying the signage for everybody. If the signage says unlicensed person, unlicensed, or it's just a no gun sign, Ghostbuster sign, gun with a line through it, no guns, maybe in big words, whatever, that applies. That holds weight. The business owner, the establishment, or whatever doesn't want, you can't carry in there under the constitutional carry, permitless carry because you are unlicensed. So all of that holds weight. So all signs matter to you for constitutional carry. Even the 30-06, 30-07, because those are signs specifically for licensed individuals, for those with an LTC. So if it applies, the signage is good enough for LTC, then obviously it's good enough for constitutional carry too. So basically, if there's any signage with constitutional carry, you're screwed as far as the legalese of it goes. So like I said, people are overthinking and they bring in all the different signs and all this minutia and really muddy the water. And it's a really simple concept. It's like the signage is either about licensed or unlicensed. And if you look at it those two ways, it really doesn't matter what the sign is.
Well, and it's because they laid it down recently, so everybody's got to figure out what the thing is. But then the antis are going to be using weird things, because I've seen in your particular state, at least because we've been focusing on it, they had this weird campaign to lean into the uncertainty and lean into the the lack of a understanding, I guess. So they're going to be doing that to obfuscate, because they win by confusion. Whenever there's anything, they win. And they're going to take any opportunity. So that's going to be a thing. What'll happen, though, is it'll become common and people will understand it, and then their little goofy signs will be ignored. And more importantly, give it a minute. It takes a minute with Texas because you only do stuff every 2 years. But give it a minute for everybody to get used to it, and you'll eventually hone your laws. Your laws will get it edited to be like, quit being dumb about this. This was a overreaction, or they were too worried about this. Let's move this, and no one will care, because it'll be like, yeah, of course, there's no fires in the street, so we don't have to worry about fire extinguishers. Yeah,
right.
Okay, so Clover is touching on that other question about giving a daughter. So one of the other questions was, if you still got time, me and my wife bought handguns for us and my daughter, who was 17. Now she's 20 and it's her gun, but the guns were bought and registered under my wife's name. How do we give her gun to her in her name?
Cool. Assuming that you're in a state, I think this is a situation where somebody is thinking a gun is registered that's not actually registered. So that would be my question is, are we talking about a state that you legitimately, the gun is registered? Or are you talking about the FFL paperwork, the 4473? Again, the 4473 and the subsequent instant background check is about the purchaser of said firearm. It's not about the owner, eventual owner, blah, 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 blah. It's the purchaser. If you read that first question, it says, are you the person purchasing this firearm? It doesn't say, are you the person that owns this firearm, is going to own this firearm. So what are you purchasing? Right? It's about buying a firearm. It's not about owning a firearm. People mix that up with the 4473s all the freaking time. And we can get into weeds and nuance of how it's similar to a registration and other things. I don't want to do that. But again, let's not overthink things. Let's pull it down to the simplest form. 4473's instant background checks are about the purchasing of a firearm. Once you purchase that firearm, assuming you're living in a state where private transactions are legal, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one bit. You give it to the daughter and she takes it home, and who cares if the 4473 somewhere has your name on it. And unless that's eventually used in a crime or something, that's never going to be run down, never going to be searched, never going to be mattered. And it doesn't even matter if it gets stolen. It's stolen from her. It's her gun. They're going to look up the records on it, run the serial number. If daddy gave it to her, then obviously daddy never reported it stolen before. So, it's in the books as a stolen gun. When they find it, they're going to return it to her because, she said it was hers and somebody stole it. Right. So, don't conflate the two. But again, not a lawyer, don't play one on YouTube. If we're talking about a state that does have a legit handgun registration, firearm registrations thing, then yeah, you're going to have to go do whatever you've got to do with the registration process for that state, and actually put it in that daughter's name. And hopefully that was simple enough.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I answered it. But as I was listening to you answer it, I want to put another thing out there for anybody that might be listening who isn't a gun person or who's new or whatever. What Clover's talking about there, the way he's talking about it, is simply from the legal point of view. Like, we're looking at this as people who are comfortable with the guns, comfortable with their operation, safety, and the way that you would store them and those kind of things. And we're moving right on past all that, the same way that a car owner isn't going to stop and say, hey, let's make sure that young adult is able to drive her car responsibly before we give her the key.
Point.
Let's make sure that she knows how to maintain her vehicle, because we're just not going to give, no parent is going to give their young kid a new car without knowing how to change the oil or change the tires or call someone who can, right? So I just want to say that Clover did not by any means mean to blow over that. It's just that the people we're talking to about this are well aware of all that kind of stuff, but we didn't mean to casually overlook the part that people might be freaking out about, that a 20-year-old girl is going to have her own gun. First off, you're sexist, because then you aren't going to say that when a 20-year-old dude gets his own gun. You're going to just start immediately suggesting that he's too violent because you're so sexist and racist or whatever you are. But if you are concerned about that, of course, we would say, like, with the caveat that daughter is ready and she understands when and how and all that stuff. Go ahead.
Well, I had an assumption the way you posed the question or the topic, and I was also reflecting a little bit on my own children and the way that things have worked historically with us. All my children are all well above 18, 21 at this point, right? There were firearms that I purchased, but they're their firearms, right? And they were, like my youngest daughter, for example, in some of her competition setups or whatever it might be. I purchased those. I bought those, but for all intents and purposes, I don't consider them mine. I didn't purchase them. I was the purchaser, so I didn't allow a 4473, right? But they were purchased for her use in competition and So they're basically hers. That's kind of the way I was reading into that, is that was kind of bought for the daughter. That makes sense.
Yeah, in other words, you weren't
like, the daughter,
here's the gun you're finally taking possession of, but instead, like, let's make sure the paperwork follows with who's always been in possession of this.
Yeah,
so you
right.
all that either.
In other words, it's always belonged to her. It's just the purchasing paperwork, because she was underage at the time it was purchased. The purchasing paperwork is in somebody else's name. Well, if it was always hers and it was bought for her several years before she became of age, right, to take legal ownership of it, then odds are she's been exposed to it. She's shot it. She knows how to manipulate the controls, and she knows how to be safe with it and clean it. And she probably knows all those things. So thanks for pointing that out, because it's super important, G. Because there was an assumption. There was an assumption on my part, and we've got to be careful about that.
Yeah, for some reason, as I was hearing you say basically pretty much more a little bit more precisely what I said, I was thinking about that, like, man, we're taking a lot for granted here. And if this is an ask questions for somebody who's new, so glad you brought that up, because it's not as though we just don't think about it. Like Clover said, he didn't think of it for the reasons he just said, which are the same, again, as if we were using that car analogy. It's not like, hey, my 20-year-old daughter is moving out and we're for the first time giving her own keys to this car she's never driven. but instead she's had this car since she was 16. She's now 20 and moving out with her 4-year car that
How
she's
does she?
intimately driven for 4 years, and we're just making sure she's got the right paperwork.
How does she register it? Right? How does she put the title in her name? How does she?
Just like when your kids go to college and they're out of state, like how do we get that car that they've already owned for a long time? It's their car. Sure, we bought it. Sure, we bought it with our name because we were running the insurance. But now they're their own, and now they're in that state. Let's help them get it over there. And it's
right.
Not like moving possession. It's more like just paperwork side. So yeah, I'm glad we brought all that up.
Yeah.
All right. So next up would be Wheeled and Well Armed was asking, do we see this channel, God Family Guns? 20 states attorney generals are standing against the ATF's new gun parts redefinition, but the reason was based on history. So, first off, have you ever heard of God Family Guns, the channel, before?
I have, yes.
Oh, you have? Okay, because 328,000 subscribers. I never heard of them.
Yeah, I have.
Any comments on it?
For a while. I don't care for their stuff. And you can tell it by the name, and I hate to say this, but you can tell it by the name, but they're pretty hyper partisan with things because of that aspect. I think the guy is like an ex or maybe even a current pastor. So there's a lot of things that rub me the wrong way with just the way things are portrayed and the perspective and stuff in which they go about things. I think it's tainted from a little more hardcore conservative position, and I'm more of a middle of the road type of guy, right? So I'm not saying it's a bad channel and the production value is bad, and I'm not saying that they're industry shills. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just pointing out the way that it is not my cup of tea. But yes, I've been aware of them and have watched several of their videos over the years, for sure. They do a lot of in gun shop stuff, which I've always thought is kind of neat. It's similar to what you kind of pioneered, honestly, G. That they, go in and have gun shop owners talk about various guns and the difference in models and some of the history of guns and some things like that. So, and that's more what I watch than the quasi-political, because again, I think some of their perspectives on the political and stuff are a little bit skewed with where they sit on the ideological chart.
Right on. So I'm going to take a second because I don't look at YouTube channels without looking at a YouTube channel. So appreciate that insight because I'd never heard of them before. They got 328,000 subs. It says they've been around since 2004 with 66 million views with 300,000 subs. Tells us they don't do a lot. Now it seems like big numbers, but it's not. You can't tell anymore how many videos they have because YouTube won't tell us. But they definitely have a style, whatever. And like you say, I can see where everything you're saying would apply. They have 600 and plus Patreons. I looked at their Patreon. You figure a Patreon is somewhere, $4 on a religious channel. It could potentially be more than $4. So $2,500 a month just on Patreon with this kind of 25,000 views, 127,000 views. I can't imagine. Do you think their stuff is monetized?
I'm pretty sure it is. I think they've spoken about some of that prior, in some live streams or some videos or something. It seems like.
So they're probably making a couple of bucks. So I always look at it because
I have met them in real life at I want to say it was an NRA show. So they're not robots. I can confirm that. And they're not bad people. They're good people. I mean, I think, I don't know if he, like I said, is current or an ex-pastor or what, but obviously with that in mind, it's not like he's a douche that ignores everybody and is rude and hateful and conceited or anything like that. They're good people. I just, again,
well, right on. Yeah, I appreciate it. And what I would look for is the size and the ambition and the goals and the growth or what I guess not just size, but like how big they're growing. Like, did they grow? Like me, I'm big from a long time ago. I'm not moving at all right now. Other people got big 10 minutes ago, right. And that just helps to help to identify who what they are and what they're doing. So I appreciate it. So again, they're a massive entity, and I've never heard of them before. So it also shows you that like none of us are paying attention to everything that's happening out there for sure. So anyway, Thanks for Wheeled for bringing it to our attention.
Yep.
FYI, if you never heard of it before, now you've heard of it. But I think this is the video you're talking about. 20 states say no to ATF's new regulations. It looks like it's a 4-minute video. Like you say, I don't know if they're just using clips. I'm not a big fan of channels that use a whole bunch of clips from other people, and I'm not into it. I'm never going to watch just somebody blab like this. So I'll listen to you guys tell me about somebody blab like this, because that's more interesting to me. But 127,000 views since the first of this month, so in 8 days. So that's pretty decent. 60 thumbs down, so it's probably echo chamber. Only 9,000 thumbs up, so not very much participation. I'm guessing they rallied the troops. I mean, I'm guessing this isn't just like buying new accessories for your dumb new mechanic type of channel. This is a channel that has fundamental values that they say. So is this like, hey, here's a reason? I didn't watch this video. Did you happen to watch this video?
What was the name of it again? I was responding to something out there.
This is specifically the one Wield asked us about, the video called
I have not. I have not watched that one yet. Being 4 minutes long, it's not some big drawn out thing. I may have to go watch it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. So if you would, I mean, I might watch it, but I'm not gonna jump to watch it, mainly because as I thumb through a 4-minute video, most of it is the guy looking at the camera. It's pictures from news.
The majority of his videos are that way, but yeah.
But there's not one stat, there's no research, it's opinion. So this is a fancy, somebody spent way too much time on producing an editorial. I'm not interested in what people think. I'm interested in what like DJ and Wield and Travis think. I don't care about what somebody who's making $5,000 a month thinks, because all they care about is thinking about how to make more $6,000 next month. So I don't like hearing about the news, but I'm interested in the data. So when we find the thing that they link to, I'll give them credit for thank you for linking straight to the data instead of horking it. A lot of channels will never even give you a link to the thing, right? So it looks like it's from the state of Montana, initiated from state of Montana, and it goes to a bunch of jerks who are infringing on us all the time. And it gives them a couple of paragraphs of probably reasons why they're a bunch of jerks and they shouldn't be letting the fucking executive branch be doing this stuff. And then they all signed it. So I'm digging it. I put a link to the actual file here. And yeah, I'm going to do a video on it. I didn't know about this. I might have seen it on Jared's, but I don't like absorb Jared's stuff. I watch it and I put it in the weekly wrap up. But thanks, Wield, for bringing this one up. I'll check it out. And I won't check out this channel. It doesn't sound like I'm interested in it. But I like that concept. I don't know if you want to throw anything on there. But then, cool, man, thanks for the answer. Yeah, I know gun culture is strong in Texas, Tejas. And my family and friends down there love their firearms. That's how they say
Tejas. Yeah. You say Tejas, and a lot of people don't even know what you're talking about when you say Tejas.
Does anybody ever say Tejas down there?
Oh, yeah. We say Tejas all the time. Yeah.
Sometimes I say stuff that has no actual use in the state.
Yeah, it gets used a lot in Texas. Yeah. I'm just saying, people that aren't from Texas, you say Tejas a lot of times, and they think you typoed if you're typing it, or they don't get that you're talking about Texas. You're saying it in a different way.
Rossi has them for sale. I just checked. We had a circuit judge for a long time, but not allowed there. Okay, thanks for the insight. You can buy both factory supplied chokes for $20 on their website, and they have a few marketed. Okay, cool. The circuit judge, for people that can't picture this one in their head, it's basically the revolver, but it's long like a shotgun. So it's a revolving shotgun. So it's whatever, 6 rounds.
Yeah, I would say it's a revolving rifle that just so happens to take 410 shells. But yeah.
Oh, I'm describing it poorly. Yeah. So it had a rifled barrel. Sorry. So it's basically just a long revolver rifle. So it's like a revolver for 45 Colt, but then, like you say, it can shoot 410. So I think of it as a shotgun. Right. Mainly it's a revolver with a rifle barrel and a stock. So it's goofy, but some people really dig it. It's kind of like a Colt revolving rifle, but the Colt revolving rifle lasted for like 11 years.
Biggest thing. And so this is a problem with revolving rifles are awesome, by the way. But here's a problem you got to watch out for. So safety tip of the day, cylinder blast when you're shooting a revolving rifle, because with a revolver, you don't have your hands in front of the cylinder. But with a revolving rifle, you shoot that two-handed, your offhand is where?
Yeah, your wrist or whatever.
Right. So you're shooting a revolving rifle, be mindful of cylinder blast and where your hand is for sure.
And I was going to say you could probably use the archery thing, except on your other. Well, no, on the same hand even.
Yeah, good. Yeah, arm guard. Yeah,
or something like it, I guess.
Then you'd look all cool shooting
I
it too.
feel like those should come back in style because that arm guard, number one, use it for a revolving rifle or shotgun. Number two, use it for archery, right? So this thing is now protecting your arm for archery and a revolving rifle. Yeah. Are you done? No, because you could leave that thing on. What if you got a hawk or a falcon? You can let that thing land on there also.
Right.
Yeah, right. They should make that in style. It's super
falconry.
Useful.
Falconry is so cool and something I would love to get into. If I ever hit the lottery or got like Hickok money on YouTube, I would have I would have to get me like I would want like an owl or something, honestly. But
no, owls are way better. I hear you. Yeah, owls are way better. Here's what I do every time I'm out, because I live in real life. I live out, I walk around out there. So there's Harris hawks, or little tiny hawks. They're awesome. They're like the small little hawk, but they're 100% hawk and they're super aggressive. And then
they can haul off like 10 times their weight. It's insane. But
I don't know about that, but they're because there's nothing that big out here. But maybe I don't know. They're you see them more often than any other kind of hawk. Then we got real hawks and eagles. There's American eagles running around, bald eagles running around or whatever. Not often because they're more upstate, but they'll eventually show down because things go to Mexico and they come through all the fake rivers and lakes that we got here, right?
Sure.
So they'll come through cities sometimes. But then we got owls, real owls that just hang out, not migrating ones. And then we got vultures, right? So we have all these awesome animals, all these awesome birds. So what I do is whenever I see one flying around out there, I'll hold my hand up. And I figure that's how you Beastmaster, right? You just hold your hand up. You don't have to go buy a critter. If it decides, oh, I'm going to go be civilized or whatever, I'm going to hang out with that dude. He looks like he's got it going. Boom. Now you got a falcon or whatever. And then you're done. You don't even have to teach it because at that point it decided to become whatever it's called, captive or whatever.
Right.
But seriously, I've had birds fly over to me and then at the last minute go, nah, I'm going to stay wild or whatever. But I figure there's always possibility that like a bird is out there watching TV or whatever and is like, I want to try that sometime. I want to see if a human ever puts its hand up. I'm going to go be with a human.
Right.
Anyway, I figure that's the best way to get a bird is Beastmaster stuff. That had to happen in the olden days. There was no videos for them to watch in the old days. They just went out and Beastmaster styled it.
No, that's absolutely true. And you got to realize that when you're talking about birds, especially large birds of prey like that, there's no threat really from humans. And when you're talking about an animal and threats, and I've watched a lot of things on this when we talk about remote islands. There's people that have literally, like the dodo, right? For example, one of the reasons is people show up on an island and like these animals have never seen people. They've got no reason to be scared of people. And the people just slaughter the crap out of them because the animals walk right up and let you hit them over the head with a club. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so I'm not saying it's that extreme of a situation, but especially with a lot of birds, it's that way because there's no reason for them to fear us.
We're just a walking perch. Yeah. And if they're legit and they figure out that you're legit, then boom, you got a match and you Beastmastered that bird. And now how do you know you don't see out of that bird's eyes?
That'd be awesome. Until you become a falconer. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
there are channels that they do put little GoPros and stuff on them where they do.
I never thought about it.
Yeah. There's some falconry channels out there that are cool, folks. They really are.
Dude, seriously, because then it would not just be flying around awesome, but it would be pursuing some other dumb bird, and then it would grab it out of the air. It'd be super cool.
Yep.
All right, so we'll try to dig through some of these. Kingpin has a great idea. I think we should have a permit for each trigger pull, even dry fire. That's a great idea.
I agree.
Maybe a counter. Every time you pull the trigger, a little government light goes on, and they know to come out and see why.
Yeah, like, we just solved gun balance right there at Kingpin.
Yeah, great seriously, job. It can't be. You can have all the guns you want and all the bullets you want. You just can't pull the trigger anymore. My uncle bought a pistol for an army friend who always kept everyone out of trouble. When his friend came to Texas to visit, his friend was, I don't know what that means. Delgo Aramagato. Oh, you like the person Maggie on that one? Say I haven't seen that channel. How can the transfer can get ugly in Maryland? The handgun license gets in the way. And even between, because that's one of those things that since you don't live under the infringement, you don't know all the details of it.
Is that even the same with parents to daughters like that? Because that's the frustrating one when
It all depends on the state and
create
the regulations.
That's what I mean. Like in Maryland, I don't know if it's like that or not.
Yeah.
Did you update your logo? Yeah. Well, on the mansplain, Wield is like, I'm not satisfied. So he made his logo better or more, I guess. Not necessarily better. His old logo is pretty cool. The simplicity of the original logo is decent. Can't I find it anymore? But anyway, his new one adds more rifles, and adds more guns. I won't say what they are. That's up to you to figure it out. But there, boom, there's his. Is there a way to make his logo bigger? I think I can fiddle with the way that I don't know where that is. Is it under brand? No. I forget where it is. Gizzard knows how to make I can make the logo bigger, so I leave it on the small version. Anyhow, so trying to dig through these. If you watch Maggie at her counter, you get a totally different channel. Oh, so it's like the person at a gun shop? Yeah, Clover says I started. I don't think I started that at all, but I definitely dig that. And I would listen to somebody at a gun shop more than I'd listen to some Yahoo who buys guns any day. Even the dumbest, lamest person who's behind the counter at a gun shop is going to be more interesting than somebody who owns like 5 guns and has opinions about all of them. For me, it would be interesting to listen to anybody at a gun shop because I'm now comparing them to everybody else I've ever listened to at a gun shop. But obviously there's going to be some people that are going to be way more interesting to listen to than others. But even the like dullest, boringest person for me is going to be being compared to everybody else. So I would dig it personally. But I don't know. Well, I guess Eric would probably be the one that brought hanging out at a gun show mainstream. Or I mean, at a gun shop mainstream, right? With the Moss Pond.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's hands down. I don't think anybody can dispute that. Because what's his face? Oh, no. Nothing Fancy would hang out and engrave knives at some place. What's the name of that place? It's not Action Arms. Anyway, he would go to this chain in Salt Lake City, and he's bigger and first, so he wins. Unfortunately, he wins a lot of stuff. But he wailed on all of us being first and bigger than anybody. But there was no person at auction. No. Actions. Boy, I can't remember the name of that shop for some reason. Dead Horse is out there. He'd know. But, or anybody who watches Nothing Fancy would know. But Eric probably wins being the biggest, most known. And of course, I can't think of his name now. But dude wins being most authentic because he's the dude who actually worked there all the time.
No, you're talking about not Barry.
No, I'm talking about dude who died a long time ago.
No, Barry.
Oh, Barry. Yeah, Barry then. Duh. I just haven't thought about him in a long time. Sorry. But no, Barry was awesome. And he was legit like dude who worked at a Georgia gun shop. He also worked building Macs. So come on. Mm-hmm. All right. So anyhow, yeah, it would be interesting. So I may or may not watch a show or a video or two of a chick hanging out at a gun shop. Sometimes I like chicks at gun shops. Sometimes I like them if they can. If a chick can recommend a revolver to another chick, I'll watch it. If they're anti-revolver, I don't watch it. I'm not. I need them to evolve.
I don't think she is. That's a pretty. I don't know where that shop is that he does that with Maggie, but it's kind of an old school shop, and she kind of dresses cowboyish and stuff, and so yeah, that's what I'm saying. The ones that I've watched, the vast majority of the stuff I've watched on that channel. Are the gun shop videos. So those are, to me, those are the most entertaining.
Right on. Sub number is so jacked up you can never really tell YouTube plays with numbers all the time. Well, they destroy numbers for sure as channels die, so you're gonna see fluctuations because a bunch of fake channels get pushed and then either YouTube finds them and removes them or the person leaves them sit and they get removed for inactivity. So you're gonna see a fluctuation in numbers based on people just having fun with an anonymous platform, and then issues. People lose a laptop and forget how to log in. They have to create a new account. It's the same person, but now one sub went away and a new sub came along. You're going to find stuff like that, and you multiply that by how big your audience is. And I probably have 25,000 with the size of my audience. I would be surprised if 25% of my audience, 25,000 people or whatever it would be, are people that don't even know how to log into that YouTube account anymore. I wouldn't even be surprised if I've got more subs than most people have of people that are just accounts that people can't log into, and eventually they'll be removed because of inactivity.
just because my subs are so old, and I don't get anywhere near those kind of numbers on my videos. So there's just all kinds of situations out there.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why some channels have 50,000 sub but like 50 views. I just answered that one. Interesting. What I just said. Also, people suck. Like some people get a bunch of views because they got boobs, or maybe they stood around the right time shooting a pumpkin in front of somebody, everything, and then the world gets exploited, and then everybody pays attention to something. All of a sudden, they got a shit ton of views. If they weren't sitting there paying $20,000 a month to make sure they kept them, then if they just suck, then all that hype and attention goes to the next person. Nothing's guaranteed. So you got a flow of water that collects in a pool. It's not going to turn into an ocean unless the circumstances are such. But you can always erode the bottom of the pool. Like all kinds of things change and move. So you see all kinds of numbers, and I don't know. I think active number of views on the current videos is probably an indication, but it's not even the best indication because again, you can just show boobs and get a lot of views. It doesn't mean that the video is worth a damn.
And you can have a really good. Well, my answer out there was it's way too complicated. People like to simplify things like that and just say, oh, YouTube's against everybody, or these people are buying subs, or whatever the case may be. There's almost not a day goes by people knows that I'm geeky and techie like that. That's and no doubt we've spent hours and hours on Thursday night shows talking about those exact topics because it's so nuanced. There's so much going on. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned quite a few different things that can be going on for sure. But you can have the best video in the world. And it go viral and never put out and get 1 million subs off that one video. And then the rest of your videos, just those 1 million people are not interested in that type of stuff. Whatever viral content that you put out was the only thing they cared about. And maybe you got lucky with titles and thumbnails. And so the impressions that you get on YouTube, which leads to your growth and other things, are not there. And there's just so many factors at play.
You can have one video with like a whole bunch of views, and then people go, what else do they got? And they either click the video before or after, like next or whatever, or whatever, right, whatever's in the list with it, or they look at whatever your flashiest thumbnail or similar topic is, they watch it, maybe they only watch it for a moment or two, and then they never watch another video. So you're going to see that video with a lot of views and then a bunch of videos around it and with similar topics with some views. So if you had access to the watch time, that would give you some indication, but you're also going to get people that have a video that catches people's attention. They look around, they value what they find, and they sit there all afternoon, what do they call that? Binging on it or whatever. So you can find that happen too. And the thing is, it's just humans.
It gets kind of creepy though. I've had like DJ's one of them out there that DJ goes back, was watching videos of mine from 5 years ago, and he'll comment, and it's cool. I say it's creepy. It's kind of cool when people dig up old content like that, but it's like, good Lord, some of that old stuff's embarrassing. Watch the new stuff.
Well, and it depends on the topic of your video. So we're getting into the nerdy stuff, but if you have a topic like, here's how this revolver works, unless that revolver disappears from the planet and nobody cares about it anymore, somebody's going to watch that video at any point in time. If you have a video that's called like what Michael Jackson did yesterday, well, then who cares about that? Nobody's going to ever care about that ever again after like 4 days from now, right? So Echo saying, hey, thanks for hosting long format live chats on reloading topics. It's awesome, and giving people who are valid a place to hang out and have decent conversations. And when 2A topics come up, you don't shy from them. I appreciate that. A lot of places that are on areas of have focused discussions on area of interest will often shy away from and shoo people away if they talk about anything that matters, political stuff that's imminent, that kind of thing. I understand there's a line where you have to maintain between somebody who comes in and complains about every single news item, but great mix over there on Echo's channel. So you guys were going back and forth. I think you're talking about that one channel or the videos or whatever, but then Domo Arigato clarifies Maggie being interviewed by the channel presenter is totally different. She seems to have some insight at her being an auditor at the gun shop, dealing with the ATF agents, I think that means. Then he was saying something like, thanks for something else you brought up about that. So I guess they have a couple, well, I don't know how that channel works, but yeah, it's interesting.
I think there should be, I think every gun shop should have its own YouTube channel. I'm going to mansplain right now. Every gun shop should have its own YouTube channel, period. And I don't care if it's good or bad or big or fancy. Every gun shop should have a YouTube channel. And if they can't do that, then they have to have one of their employees or even better, a customer help them. And that would be awesome. Instead of seeing stupid figureheads who are by chance or random, or honestly, sometimes at this point, it's more of intent. Every time I see a channel that's bigger than, what can happen, an intentionally big channel that has no substance, it's just empty, that was engineered. I mean,
yeah,
it's just garbage. It's not like a awesome skyscraper where somebody's proud that they're able to achieve this monumental effort, right? It's instead like, oh, you can build big skyscrapers, give me some glass and girders, and then I put a big square box next to it. Yep. That's what most of these channels are. So anyway, it'd be cool to see gun shops be the focus instead of just random quote unquote celebrities, especially now that celebrity's a recipe that anybody with the motive and the resources can create.
Correct.
Let's see, Quartermaster, if you get a Falcon, you have to call it Falcon and call yourself a Falcon and call yourself a Falconeer. I don't know about that. I would call it a Raptor probably, because that sounds cooler than Falcon, but I would also call it a Falcon if that was more impressive to some chick. And again, I would more like I'd Beastmaster this thing. The Falcon or the Raptor is going to go live on its own. In fact, I figure if it lives on its own, flying around with all the other birds up there, it's going to tell the other birds, like, that dude's cool. He'll give you a mouse or let you kill something or whatever. And then other birds will come down. So basically, it's like when you go outside, a bird of the day comes down and hangs with you, sits on your shoulder, and you give it mice or whatever, and then it flies away. I don't want to have like a bird nest and have to clean out any bird poops or none of that. In fact, I want them to go poop on, maybe you could have them poop on your enemy's houses.
There you go.
Cool.
Or our car windshields would be better.
As long as they're parked, but yes, I did that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, arrows, nerd talk. Let's see. Dodos were killed by pigs who ate their eggs. Pigs are dicks.
But humans introduced pigs, and there was no natural enemy or whatever to the dodos. The pigs didn't. I mean, the dodos didn't. You know what I'm saying? They didn't fear the pigs or nothing like that. So, same scenario. But yeah, true.
If we give Wield a machine gun, will it propel him backwards? So I'm sure you can figure out how to use his brakes. But here's the thing: I'm sure he would entertain us if we wanted to run a physics experiment. That's all I'm saying.
Guarantee you would.
It would be a factor of ammo. So first off, you'd have a backpack belt, right? For a saw, you'd have to have a pig. So you'd want an M60. So you'd have a 30 caliber or an M2. But the M2 is getting crazy, right? So let's say a pig, an M60 with one of those backpacks. So you have that mechanical belt looking thing that lets the ammo feed from a backpack. Mm-hmm. And then it would be a matter of, it would be slow because you'd have all that ammo weight, and it would be slow. But then as you started to get lighter, because of the ammo would be dissipating, right? You'd go faster. So it'd be an interesting experiment. It would be cool because then you'd have a bunch of kids, guess if it's going to, what kind of rate of speed increase it would be. It'd be some math, it'd be some procedure. But
so here's the thing. Couldn't you just lock one wheel down and then you're doing 360 donuts while you fire? Wouldn't that be more effective?
Technically, but then you'd have to have a 360 range and you have to be filming it with drones. But yeah, of course. You could also give him an anchor or some shit so that he could pivot on a fulcrum. Is that the right word? But pivot on a
that's true.
So that both wheels could run or whatever. But then he'd be more, like he wouldn't be going in a straight line, he'd be going in a circle, but it'd be more controlled and he could be more effective. Like you put wheeled with a 60, and I'm pretty sure most people would want to ride with that as opposed to, let's see. So you really can't count compound bow. Quit your nerd talk. This is a gun. This even says right in the title, ask gun questions. Just practice with the rotating, think of video addressing that, grip angle. Here's a good place to start. Come on. I don't know what all that was about. And then
Tara, I think it was Tara, was talking about how she has to cant her bow 1 and 7. So imagine a clock, top of it at 1 o'clock, bottom at 7, and
Oh,
it's a compound bow. And canting a compound bow is not the best way to go about doing things. If you shoot it that way, great that way. But the big mistake that causes that with compound bows is grip and shoulder. So most people want to grip a bow with their entire fist. They want to what we call monkey fist it. And a bow needs to fall away once you let go of the string. Everything needs to fall forward because you don't want any. It's like pulling a trigger, right? Left or right or whatever. It's the same thing. You don't want any more force than is required to keep that bow from hitting the ground. So what I typically recommend is lay your hand out flat, rest that bow between your pointing finger and your thumb in the web of your hand, and lightly pinch. And then also rotate your shoulder outward, that offhand shoulder outward, and that keeps string slap from happening, and that's your proper archery form. But some people do it not proper archery form and shoot fine. So at the end of the day, if it works for you, do it.
So I'm okay with archery. Like, I mean like skill wise. I mean, like, I'm okay with people talking about archery or bringing it up as a valid subject or whatever. Like, I own a couple of different bows or whatever, but I'm not I'm not tied to nothing.
Like
Mainly
a fanboy, yeah.
Huh?
Well, you're not like fanboyed out or whatever.
Definitely not that, but also just not knowledgeable. Like, I barely,
Yeah.
I'm aware, but I know I'm not like into it or whatever. Definitely not fan of any particular type. But I was gonna say mainly because I grew up with, I dig Native Americans or like Indians, whatever we want to call them now. And every time there was an option, I would do my school reports on learning more. If I had like an art report, it would be on some kind of art for that kind of stuff because it would give me an excuse to learn more, right? And I just dug it because the country appreciates the sacrifices and the situation and the decency of the folks who got wailed on, and the discretion and all the other crap. And then the real people will remember that it wasn't all like a bunch of slaughter. It was a bunch of assholes running around being horrible, and the people went out and stopped that also. So it was like a bunch of different stuff happening. But anyhow, I'm a big fan of the archers, the Indian bow and arrows or whatever you want to say, like their ability to take on what was at the time massive technology. And so I've always had that in the back of my head, right? I just always understood the effectiveness of what somebody could whittle out of wood or a cactus thorn or whatever, cactus rib or whatever they made them out of, and then, made arrows and stuff. So everything modern, I was always like, Indians can do this with Indian stuff, right? So I've just always had that opinion of bow and arrow stuff. So, and then until I had a client, when I started doing web stuff, and I had a client who basically let me run around the shop to help promote the store, but also taught me stuff. And having a relationship as a a consultant or a collaborator or whatever in their business, I could ask all the questions I want, and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I started to appreciate compound bows, and I got no problem with them.
Right.
As soon as I got to that level, I found out about Chinese archery or whatever it's called, or I don't know what to call it, Asian archery, old-fashioned horseback Asian archery with them long-ass bows, and I'm back to like, no way. People with basically
or Egyptian.
With like, I didn't even think about that one, but
when
that's
you
the
get
same.
into recurves and stuff, especially, yeah.
Well, but basically natural bows made out of just wood and whatever, bone or whatever they make it out of, but just stuff, not plastics and metal. And then the whole idea of speed. Have you ever seen like the fast shooting? I don't know what to call it. Like, is that Asian shooting? What the hell am I supposed to call it? Like, I don't know what to call. Like, I would call it like kung fu bow and arrow shooting. Like,
I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Basically, they just hold like 10 arrows in their hand and go.
Right.
And I'm like, done. Like, screw your compound bow with your 6 arrows in there and are all lame. I mean, I always have, because of Rambo, right? I've got my thing to carry arrows on my bow all the time.
Heck yeah.
I don't know if that's cool or not, but compared to holding 6 arrowheads in your hand and shooting them faster than I can describe it, like, nah. Old-fashioned bow and arrowing is always going to win out for me. Like, all this modern stuff can go suck it.
So as far as on bow quiver, if you're talking about shooting a competition, that's extra weight on the bow. The balance, it can throw the balance off. It can do a lot of different things. So yeah, probably not optimal. And even in the hunting world, as far as transport to and from the stand or whatever, but I would always recommend, pop that quiver off. Usually it's just a little screw or a little latch. and have a place to put it there at your stand. Because odds are, if you're hunting, I mean, you sling one arrow and you miss, that deer's gone, or that whatever it is, and you're probably not going to get a follow up, right? Unless you're shooting speed archery like you're talking about. As far as archery in general, one of my loves is it was developed because got into the shooting sports, was teaching the Utes, and I learned real quick. And this applies to the 2A world and can be, we've talked about this before, maybe even years ago, but archery can be a gateway big time, because here's the thing. People perceive, even though as far as danger is concerned, archery is a much more dangerous sport. Look at all the tips and pointy things with archery. You don't have that with guns, right? And so with all of the sharp pointy ends with archery and the perception that it's safer than firearms, you get more negligence. So you get more people cutting themselves, poking themselves, whatever the case may be, right? Injury related stuff, as opposed to firearms. Archery is way, way more dangerous as far as that goes. But it's not perceived that way. But if you can get people into the archery thing, it quite often is a natural progression if they've never had any experience with guns or anything else. It can be a very safe gateway drug to shooting sports in general. Hey, you like this and shooting bullseyes with this arrow going 300 feet a second? how about this high-powered rifle? Instead of shooting 10 yards, here with this bow, how about we stretch it out and shoot 300 yards with this rifle, right? Or whatever the case may be. So, don't, my take on it is don't discount, and a lot of people do, don't discount archery for how it can potentially usher people in, especially people that are not as susceptible, that fear firearms because they're not educated and they believe them to be uber super dangerous regardless of the safety of the human using them and that sort of stuff. Not my most eloquent speech about archery, which I have gave numerous speeches on archery, but it'll work.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The only thing I think I'll throw in there is it seems like there's the and or like one or the other, and that sucks. There's definitely room for overlap, and I don't know. It's sort of like airsoft and guns. Like usually, if you're into one, you don't mix streams because airsoft people often, from what I understand, are like not into guns sometimes. Like I'm going to say often even, like there's airsoft people that chose airsoft because they don't want to do paintball or they don't like guns or something, but they like cosplay to that level or something, right? So sometimes people that are into both won't bring their gun stuff over to our gun conversations and topics over to airsoft, and they almost never bring airsoft over to guns because nobody wants to talk about airsoft when we're talking about guns or whatever, right? So that's one of those things where I don't think anybody deliberately says don't do it, except that in an actual conversation, people will be like, "Shut up! I don't want to talk about that." But in general, people don't tend to cross those streams, and I see that with archery. Or you're more into archery than me? Am I missing that? Is there imagine in hunting there can probably be a mix. I know definitely people that own a bow and a shotgun, and they pick them both up equal amount of time and use them once a year, and they put them right back down again. But I don't know how many people.
Outside of youth shooting sports, right? I think once you get up into adult level shooting sports, there's no mix. But if you think about it, there's really no mix between a lot of the other disciplines and stuff. You don't see shotgunners going over to precision rifle and precision rifle going over to 22 long rifle steel challenge, and you don't see 22 long rifle steel challenge a lot of times going to 22 precision pistol and all of that. So to say that there's an inherent issue because there's not crossover or whatever, I don't know that that's accurate, because the non-crossover kind of applies to everything. It's just no matter what, that there's people that are into four-wheel drive Jeeps, but they don't give a crap about Blazers, or whatever, or they like to go, or they like to go to the off-road mud park, but it's all about their quad or their four-wheeler. They don't care about vehicles at all, or motorcycles or dirt bikes. So it's a normal thing. I'm just making the case that somebody that's well-rounded in shooting sports in general has the ability to bring more people into, I think, firearms and Ultimate 2A if they have archery in their repertoire. That's all I'm getting at.
No, I agree. And I think that if you're one of the, I'm going to mansplain to parents, if you've got a situation where you're not sure yet with your kid, then I think archery is a good way to test, potentially take them to like an archery introduction thing, or take them to, I bet you most indoor archery places, if you said, can you do something to see if my kid's interested in archery? They're going to be like, let's pull out a kid's bow and see, right? Like, assuming they got a lane there. Right. So, because you can almost, at least in Arizona, you can find indoor archery places that maybe they're not like fully decked out, but they'll have a place where they can test a bow inside if they don't have a nice setup for something. Sure. But yeah, and a kid shooting a bow at like a stuffed, whatever, deer, pig, or whatever, turkey, has got, I mean, come on, that's a billion times more fun than anything else, except maybe shooting a BB gun at those stuffed things.
An alien.
Oh snap! I didn't even think of that kind of stuff.
Have you ever seen? So the mother alien from the Alien movies, right? The big, huge.
Of course.
Everybody does. So what was it like? I don't remember what year, but there for quite a few years, the Reinhardt shoot that happens in DFW. Reinhardt is a manufacturer of the targets she's talking about, right? The big old realistic archery targets. And dude, they have, like, you remember the Wampa monster from Empire Strikes Back? Was it the Wampa, the big Yeti, white Yeti that smacks Luke and hangs him up? Dude, they had that. They had the mother alien, and the mother alien was huge, dude. And we're talking about an archery shoot where you're shooting at these targets that are like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. There's animals. There's deer and turkey and even exotic, right? They have elephants and giraffes and all kinds of life size. But they also have, at the Reinhardt shoots, if you're into archery and you ever get a chance to go, do it, because they have their quote unquote specialty targets. They don't sell them because no telling how many thousands of dollars they would cost, but they do produce them for those shoots. And they've got some really awesome, from aliens to crazy animals to dinosaur, big, huge dinosaurs to all kinds of stuff. It is insane. But the mother alien probably was the best, most coolest one I ever seen.
So there you go. That's exactly. I've seen some interesting stuff, but I never thought about that kind of neat stuff. All right, so we're getting to the 3-hour mark, which is 2-hour mark for Clover. So there's one other question that was a new one, the most recent one that someone had asked. So I'm going to ask you that one, but we're going to double check the live chats over here. There was a couple of things that came up. So let's see. Domo is saying, you showed how to add other channels to your YouTube channels tab. Could you go over that again, or just link to the episode? So I don't remember when I post these things ahead of time when they're going to post or whatever, but so I don't think you have to do anything to get them to your channels tab. I think you just subscribe to them, and once you're subscribed to them and you turn on your channels tab, they show up, if I remember correctly. So in other words, you just subscribe to a channel and display that.
I was muted, but yeah, you're correct. If you go into your creator studio under your channel settings and stuff, where you it says customize, I believe, you have the option to turn on all of that. Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Where did my channel tab go? Oh, here it is. They shoved it. You don't get to choose them, I guess.
You minimize you've got to minimize screen there, so it should.
Oh, it just shoved them over. Okay, yeah. That's so. Yeah, I just now I did show how to put them to your community tab. I think I made a video that I posted, and I don't know when it goes live, but where I was going to my history, I think, or something, and I found a bunch of channels that I watch, or maybe I went to my subscription list, and then what I did is I posted to the community tab a new post. So let's say I wanted to, well, I can't link off anything easily here, but like here's, somebody else would be in here. Here's Wheeled, right? If I had Wheels video over here and I wanted to post to it, I could, just take the link or whatever over here, copy, and go to video. And when you put the link in there, it finds it on YouTube for you right away. Of course, since I posted the channel link, you get the idea. This case, it's the channel link, so there's a link to his channel. This channel is good or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you can say schedule. So instead of putting 50 of them up right now, schedule them one every Wednesday for the next 50 weeks. And you sit there for an afternoon listening to a live chat and you do this. And then tomorrow you do it for all the organizations you like. And then you do it for all the specific videos you think are cool. And then you do it for revolvers on Wednesday or something, wheel gun Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like that's what I think I made a video about. So that's how to get them into your community tab. And you could link to the channel. You could link to something specific, a playlist or whatever. I think I listed to their channel tabs also, because instead of just linking to the channel, I figured why not I link to their channel tabs? And then I took a screenshot of everybody's channel tab just to see who they've subscribed to. But anyway, that's layers on layers, but that's definitely an option. I recommend it. Use your YouTube channel as a resource to show your viewers, people that come to your channel to see what's happening, who you appreciate, what you're into, right? That way they know, hey, I'm sticking around. This chick is into what I'm into. Or they're going to see like, oh, okay, this person doesn't like archery, or this person hates 9mm or whatever, like valid interests they have. So that's one thing, but you're also promoting those other channels. Like, I guess when I put this link to Wheeled and Well Armed, that's putting it in front of a channel that's got 167,000 subscribers. If you've got 67,000 subscribers or you've got 67 subscribers, you're helping everybody. Everybody helps everybody in Al Gore's world of internet. So yeah, worthwhile and just fun to do because you're using the software, you're using the platform, you become stronger, you have more skills. When somebody comes around and goes, YouTube's out to get me and blah, 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 and everybody hates me and the world's going to end and democracy's not that good and capitalism's going to fail. Then you go over there and you go, oh, well, you're a dipshit. You don't even link to anybody else's channel. So why would anybody support you when you don't support them? How it works in humans. Right. Humans need to know you're alive and that you're actually authentic. So participate. And then they go, oh, you've enabled me and now I am participating and I'm successful and I can shut up and I can help others. So you may not realize that you're responsible for the flood, but only every single drop is responsible for the flood. Floods don't happen because a bunch of water is not interested in a bunch of drops, but it only is a bunch of drops. So yeah, great question. And I'll definitely go way too long on that kind of stuff. I want to learn how to throw an atlatl. If you go to the Wanamaker Gun Show in Tulsa, Oklahoma, twice a year, there's a dude there that sells like a ton of different atlatls. Right. And although they don't seem like they're that hard to throw, I'm assuming they're easy to throw.
Yeah. They're throw and throw accurately is two different things, but yeah.
Well, here's the thing. A sling, I got into just braiding a paracord sling out of a piece of paracord for a while because I live where there's a lot of rocks. And once you understand that you can just sit there in like 10, 15 minutes and braid a paracord sling, a pocket with two things off of it, you can then pick up rocks until you can throw very accurately with that thing that is just paracord. And once you're confident that you can just sit there at any moment and make a paracord sling and pretty much knock a softball out of somebody's hands, that's a whole different world to live in. So an atlatl is a big ass long stick on a lever. I bet you after an hour of throwing it, you're like going to be knocking softballs out of people's hands, unless you've got an issue. But you know what I'm saying? Like that seems like, I mean, again, that's how civilization happened because people were using that all the time. So I'm down. So I'd say go for it. Buy one, make one, and sit there for an hour. I say make one because you're probably going to break it, right? I would think. So know how to make another one right away. Okay, so the Kroll weapon was an interesting question. I am anti-Kroll, but I put up a poll to see what people think about the Kroll weapon. So we'll get responses from that eventually, and we'll see what people are saying. At this point, with 9 votes, people are pro Kroll weapon. Where are you on the topic? I can't vote.
First of all, it's called the glaive.
There's a name? I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, I guess there is, as they talk about it.
Yeah, it's the glaive. I'm pro glaive. However, with all the spiky and different things, you really need to be trained. I think there really needs to be training requirements for glaives, without a doubt.
Like a permit?
Yeah, probably training and leading to a permit, I would think. Yeah, because you're talking about, if we just allow everybody to have a glaive and be trying to throw them around, we're going to have a lot of people in emergency rooms with severed fingers. So, and we can't have that. That just adds to the violence that's out there.
My other problem is that it looks so much like a fidget spinner for the children.
This is true too. So we just make a law where they can't be different colors. That's all.
Super Pro Crow. Interesting. So I've always hated that movie, and I've always hated that dumb boomerang, and it
Oh,
just
it's
made
the
no sense
worst.
to me. But
It's one of the worst movies ever, is it not?
yeah,
I mean, it's iconic as it can be, but it's one of the
I mean,
effects.
people remember it, but it was like, let's go find a boomerang in a tunnel or a hole or something, and it's like, ugh.
Well,
And it was like Beastmaster happened, and it was like, whoa, Beastmaster, what? You can go
right.
talk to animals. All you got to do is put on shorts, go outside, and start talking to animals. Look through their eyes. It's amazing, and you win like all kinds of treasure. And there's girls. It's awesome. And then every other movie was like, oh, we're going to hork off a Beastmaster. And that's when where Kroll came along. They're like, oh, we'll put a boomerang in it and kids will watch it. Couldn't stand it.
Right.
But no, I think a lot of people liked it. It probably has to do with when you're born, like in what order you saw movies, because people who've seen Conan think all the other ones are ripoffs of Conan. But I feel like everything's a ripoff of Beastmaster, because Beastmaster is way better than Conan.
Yeah.
So Ted Nugent's, so then I was saying, how about Ted Nugent killed me? So a lot of people have heard this story, so I'll just say it quick. I was minding my business, and I didn't realize that Ted Nugent needs all 8 doors of an exit in order to leave a freaking room. So I was minding my business at SHOT Show 2000 or NRA Show 2009 in Phoenix, going outside because I was feeling like going outside. I didn't realize I had authority, that I had to get permission from Ted Nugent's thugs in order to go outside of the building. So I was minding my business and attempting to exit a door, which is an exit door. And it was part of the building that not anybody else was in. And Ted Nugent's a coward, so he always has to go around where there's nobody around. So I'm walking out this door, and like it seemed like the Secret Service, like a wave of Secret Service agents, like molested me, pushed me out of the way, knocked me down, stepped on me, took stuff out of my wallet and looked at it, and then took pictures of it and crumpled it up and stuff on the floor and stepped on it and stuff. And I was just innocent. I wasn't doing anything, and it was a horrible. And then he has like 8 people that push people out of the way so that he can open, and then they open the door for him. What a wuss. I hate that guy. And everybody I know that have met him don't like him. Just saying.
Yeah.
But I don't like him also because he's a Yahoo, and he seems like low-hanging fruit, and he's always hanging for the antis to pester. Ugh, he's like the nutsack that hangs out of somebody's shorts. Like, come on, man, put some clothes on.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy. And he tried to kill me. I could have been killed if I wasn't so resilient and hard. A lesser 9mm shooter would have never made it through what happened to me. I don't like to dwell on it, but yeah. Let's see. You asked for it, you got it. Ted Nugent, horrible man, tried to kill me in 2009. Said it here. Let's see. So with that, I think we're done with real questions. So the last one that did come up, we'll end it on, which is not too far from being 2 hours worth with Clover, is, and we'll end the Kroll poll. Unfortunately, everybody was pro Kroll weapon. I guess they've either never seen the movie or attempted to wing a boomerang with like 1,000 knives on it. But go for it. Did they have magic or something that it didn't stab you? I don't even remember, but it was a boomerang, wasn't it? I mean, it was supposed to go away and come back to you. I don't remember. So the last question for Clover is, and this was the most recent one to come in, so I don't look over here to see who asked it, but maybe they put a name. Tony asked this one. I'm new to owning a are you here, Clover?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm new to owning a firearm, and when I was taking the bullet from my chamber out, I noticed it had a firing pin mark on the back of the bullet, but I never once pulled the trigger. Is this something I should be worried about?
No. What gun was it again?
It didn't say. It just says I'm new to owning a firearm, and when I was taking the bullet from the chamber, I noticed it had a mark.
Yeah, it's a floating firing pin. That's what's going on, which is a very common design. And so when you rack that slide or that bolt or whatever forward in those, you get a little bit of slap because that firing pin floats back and forth a little bit. And so it's not going to be enough, assuming all your springs are in order and a lot of other things. It's not going to be enough because it floats, right? It's not rigid. So when that firing pin, because it's floating, when it kind of slaps the back of the case, it'll put a little mark. But because it's not locked into place with a hammer or with a spring or with anything else, it's not going to detonate the primer. So pretty common thing.
Yeah, it's like you got a station wagon or a not pickup. I guess you could have a pickup truck or something, and you put a box in the back, and you're driving around. That box is going to slide around back there, but unless you have a wreck, that box isn't going to go flying through the window and hit you. or that box isn't going to come flying up from the back of a station wagon and hit the driver unless you really had an accident or something. So it's sort of like that, right? The bolt, I guess, has a firing pin in it, and because of the spring or whatever, it's kind of in place, but it's not affixed. That's pretty much my answer too. So yeah, something that we see, and once you get used to it, I imagine that's a question everybody asks. It's just that depending on when you jump into guns, you're asking your parents or you're asking somebody else on the internet. Because it happens to a lot of guns, actually. Well, I shouldn't say that. It used to happen to a lot of guns. I haven't shot enough new guns. It probably doesn't happen anymore at all, really. Like to revolvers and stuff, you probably never have it happen. All right, so everybody's saying goodbye. With that, we'll wrap it up. Again, thanks to Clover for jumping in. This was a little bit longer. Normally, we're going to run this one for 1 hour. We just had a good time bullshitting.
A little bit longer? Good Lord. But okay, yeah.
Yeah, so, but just to let people know, again, don't expect a 3-hour show every weekend. However, I don't know who I'm corking right now. I think I run this right on top of Rick and then jump into G23s. So there's a couple of shows that happen on Saturdays that are worth checking out, that are live conversations that are focused on guns and often Second Amendment stuff. And then alternatively, later on, Barbecue comes on and does his barbecue show, which sometimes talks about guns. And then tonight we do the advanced show. So feel free to join in, advancing the conversation about Second Amendment beyond reacting to news, and more towards strategy and long-term goals, and utilizing resources that are available to us, and not just having theoretical discussions about the way things could be or should be. So if you're interested in that kind of talk on a late night Saturday, we do it. And Clover's got a channel where you can link to it. We'll link to it again here. And thanks to the people who joined us live. We had a great conversation in real life. And with that, oh wait, is this week? No, this week is not FOSS. So let's see, you've got a bunch of stuff to listen to today. And then tomorrow you've got Gizzard doing his long format live show as well.
Early bird.
Early bird, yeah, thanks. Okay, with that, I'll use Gizzards. See you next time. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals of gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com.